If listening or watching on demand, good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is-
you're
the failure is-
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also political commentator Andy Williams. Coming up, I sat down with Captain Tom's daughter Hannah Ingram-Moore in an exclusive interview.
It was a name that was picked up because it was too salacious not to, I think. A swim spa, Google it, that's the brand name. It's great, they're great little pools, but it's basically a hot tub at one end.
And is Nigel Farage prepared to work with Boris Johnson to turf Labour out of government?
If I can assure the honourable member for Rugby that Reform want healthcare to be free at the point of delivery... There appears to be some panic on that side of the House, I'm not surprised. What do I say? Oh, they really are panicking, aren't they?
Sources close to the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage said he would consider a pact with the former Prime Minister. This is what Boris Johnson had to say at his last PMQs.
Hasta la vista, baby. Thank you.
Yes, perhaps he is coming back, and of course we will take Nigel Farage's speech in Wiltshire live on this programme very shortly, and we'll be hearing from Zia Yusuf. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Sam Francis.
Nana, thank you very much. Good afternoon to you. Just coming up to 2 minutes past 3. The top story, the Prime Minister has sacked one of his health ministers over offensive comments he's reported to have made in a WhatsApp group. Andrew Gwynn has also been suspended as a member of the Labour Party and has since apologised for what he called misjudged comments. It follows reports in the Mail on Sunday he reportedly made anti-Semitic comments and joked about a pensioner constituent, saying he hoped she died before the next election. It's also alleged that he attacked members of his own party, including making racist comments about Labour MP Diane Abbott and sexist comments about the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. Well, Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook has praised Sir Keir Starmer for acting decisively.
Comments made by Andrew Gwynn are completely unacceptable. That this is going to be a government that upholds the highest standards of conduct in public life. We're a government in service of working people, so we've taken decisive action to dismiss Andrew Gwynn as a minister, as is the case. There's a live investigation going on in terms of the Labour Party. Andrew Gwynn's been administratively suspended. He's lost the Labour whip. I don't know what was said in those WhatsApp groups. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment.
Meanwhile, Shadow Chancellor Alex Burkhardt says Andrew Gwynn's comments show Sir Keir Starmer hasn't got a hold of anti-Semitism within the Labour Party.
The worst thing that I've seen Mr Gwynn say on that group was that one gentleman was too Jewish. Now, Keir Starmer claims that he's gotten on top of this problem in the Labour Party, but he clearly hasn't. We need to know who else was on that group. Did they call Andrew Gwynn out when he said that? If not, what sanctions are going to be taken against them? You know, we need all of this out in the open as quickly as possible, because otherwise it's the same old Labour, same old anti-Semitism within the left in this country, and you know, it shows that Labour hasn't changed at all.
In other news today, the parents of two girls killed in the Southport knife attack say they're looking for light in the darkness. Speaking to the Sunday Times, 7-year-old Elsie Stancombe and 6-year-old BB King's families remembered their daughters as confident, happy and intelligent. They also opened up about their children's funerals and the support of their communities in the months since the horrendous attack. Alice da Silva Aguirre has also lost her life. Meanwhile, it's been reported that Donald Trump has talked to Vladimir Putin on the phone to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. According to the Telegraph newspaper, the US president said he believes the Russian leader does care about the number of people being killed. Mr. Trump also told the New York Post that Putin wants to see people stop dying. In the interview, which the newspaper said took place on board Air Force One on Friday, Mr. Trump said that he had better not say when asked how many times the two leaders have spoken, but confirmed they maintain a good relationship. Well, warnings are continuing today over potentially deadly cold snaps hitting the UK. The Met Office says temperatures could plunge to -7 degrees in parts of the country, with areas set to be hit by snow and ice. The Health Security Agency has issued yellow cold health alerts for North East, North West, Yorkshire and the Humber and the South East, which is in place until Tuesday. That means vulnerable people, including the elderly or those with serious health conditions, may be at increased risk due to plunging temperatures. And before I hand you back to Nana, one last story for you. Friends star David Schwimmer has called on ex-owner Elon Musk to remove Kanye West from the platform. It comes after West appeared to write a barrage of posts on his social media account, making offensive comments about Jewish people and appeared to mock domestic violence. The actor, Mr. Schwimmer, took to Instagram to urge Mr. Musk to remove West from X because of what he described as his hate-filled, ignorant bile. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you in around half an hour. Now, though, let's get straight back to Nana.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Coming up, the top story. Labour minister sacked for alleged offensive comments. The MP for Gordon and Denton caught out wishing death on a non-Labour voter. As well as mocking Jewish names and female MPs. It's only been 7 months into the government. 3 ministers leaving in as many months as those. And the scandals seem to be piling up. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it fair to judge politicians on leaked private messages? I've got a poll up on gbnews.com. Cast your vote now. Is Starmer's judgment in question? And also, my big interview, I sat down with Captain Tom's daughter, Hannah Ingram-Moore, and in an exclusive interview.
There's a name that was picked up because it was too salacious not to, I think. A swim spa. Google it. That's the brand name. It's great. They're great little pools, but it's basically a hot tub at one end.
So more will be revealed just after 5 o'clock. That's coming up. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments. gbnews.com/your say. So, coming up, of course, we'll be going live to the Reform Conference. We'll be hearing from Zia Youssef. But let's start with Nigel Farage eyeing up a Reform Tory mega party with Boris Johnson. Joining me now is former Labour MP Stephen Pound. Stephen Pound, what do you think of what would you call this, a re-C-pack, a recon pack, or con-re?
I honestly
like a lib lab.
Yeah. It's what's fascinating. What really interests me here is Nigel Farage. He's, public school educated, city trader, living in the posh part of Kent, and yet he seems to resonate with working people in a way that very few politicians actually do. He seems to have that ability to cut across. Now, I was out canvassing yesterday in the rain and the snow in Northolt, well, certainly the rain, and the number of people who said, he's talking our language. Now, and yet you've got somebody who is genuinely from a working class background like Keir Starmer doesn't seem to quite cut across that much. So are we talking about reform as a political game changer or Nigel Farage as a political game? What is reform without Nigel? That is the key question.
Well, I don't know. I mean, reform have got some great people. Zia Youssef, who's quite...
He's impressive. He was very impressive on Question Time the other day.
Lee Anderson, he was very good.
Yeah,
Lee Anderson, who shoots from the hip, says what he wants.
Well, I'd never insult Lee Anderson. He's bigger than me.
Well, I wouldn't if I were you, because he'll definitely win on that one. And he's brilliant, isn't he? And he speaks the language of normal people.
Yeah.
I think the problem with the Labour Party is they're just not listening to the constituents at all. And actually, hearing from this Andrew Gwynn, it seems some of them hold their constituents in absolute contempt, which I think is a big problem.
I've frequently come on here to defend the Labour Party, and I do the best I can. I've known Andrew Gwynn for years, and I was genuinely horrified when I heard these comments. I was with Andrew in Zambia a couple of years ago. He was doing some stuff with the United Nations for the first ever baby born of an HIV-positive mother. It was amazingly, incredible, important work he was doing. And I never in a million years would have dreamt that he would have come up with this sort of some of these comments. I think that what Keir Starmer's done is unavoidable. He's immediately suspended him from the Labour Party, and obviously his career's over. I think it's a damn shame because
he suspended him, but will he be put forward to the Parliamentary Standards Committee so that they can potentially actually remove him as an MP or force a by-election?
Well, I'm not entirely sure if it's a question of standards, but the House of Commons could say that he's brought the House into disrepute.
Yeah.
He could be suspended. If he's suspended for more than a couple of weeks, then there could be a recall ballot in his constituency, and he could end up, as has happened before, with him losing his seat.
And the recall ballot is when the constituents call
exactly
for a by-election.
I mean, there've been one. I mean, it's happened in Ballymena when Ian Paisley Jr. was the subject of a recall petition. The people said, no, we actually want to keep him. They've got the choice. But on the other hand, in Wellingborough, the opposite happened, and the MP had to go. It's a horrible thing. I mean, the substantive point you made earlier on is very interesting about are these people, should these comments be made public? I think they should be. I think it actually says a lot to the personality and the character of the individual if what they say in public is totally different to what they say in private. And I think really and truly, if you've got those attitudes, and as I said, of all the people, I would have thought that Andrew Gwynn was the least person likely to have these views. But if he does, it has to be brought out into the public, whether you like it or not.
And would you say that in general, so MPs in particular, what they say on WhatsApp could be opened out to the rest of the public? Do you think that's...
Yeah, I mean, you can row back a tiny bit. There used to be a website called I Spy MP, and I'd be on the tube going back to Ealing of an evening, just quite, reading the paper or doing so, and then some so-and-so would be photographing me. Next thing, it'd be up on, because everything you did was out in the public arena. But look, I think, in all honesty, I'd stay off WhatsApp and stay off TikTok if I were you.
Or only write what you're prepared to see being published. But
I'd agree with you.
Stephen Pound, thank you very much. Right, let's cross live to Wiltshire as Reform UK are holding a press conference. I think right now Zia Youssef is speaking.
That as part of such a pact,
good on Question,
a man named Boris Johnson would be made leader. Now, how do you all feel about that? Well, I can tell you Reform has, in the last few hours, issued a formal statement. Would you like to hear it, ladies and gentlemen? Reform UK statement, 9th of February 2025. There are absolutely no circumstances in which Reform would ever do a pact with Boris Johnson or the Conservative Party. Johnson was responsible for the betrayal of Brexit, threw open Britain's borders, and collapsed standards in public life through his lack of integrity. Reform intends to win the next election, repair the damage caused by Johnson, the Tories and Labour. We will then return Britain to greatness. I trust that clears things up, ladies and gentlemen. Now on with our important business. We are on a roll, aren't we? What a remarkable year it's been. You know, a year ago, Nigel was enjoying what was, by all accounts, a quite lovely retirement. The Tories were on their 4th Prime Minister in 6 years and still importing unfathomable numbers of people into this country at alarming rates. Reform was polling at 8%, rising fast under Richard's outstanding leadership, and we had about 15,000 Reform members. A year on, Reform is the talk not just of the UK, but of the Western world. We've captured the hearts and the imaginations of millions to whom we offer hope. We've opened over 400 branches across the country. We've surged to 26% in the average of the polls. We've grown our membership 13-fold. And ladies and gentlemen, Nigel Farage is now the bookmakers' favourite to be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Now, a few weeks ago, I was with Nigel in Washington, D.C. during the weekend of the inauguration of Mr. Donald J. Trump. What a marvel it is to see a political leader campaign on a transformative agenda, make a series of promises, get elected, and then deliver most of those within 24 hours of taking office. It was quite something, I can tell you. The signing ceremony, the throwing the pen into the crowd, the dance with the sword. Did you see that? The dance with the sword? That's definitely a first. Now, despite the freezing cold, I'll tell you, you could feel the effervescent energy in that city. And this was beautifully encapsulated by an event that we attended, hosted by Pete Hegseth, who is the new Defense Secretary of the United States. Now, his vision was such a tonic to the weak-kneed apologist gruel that British people have had to endure for decades. With extraordinary presence and charisma, he declared that the United States military, under direction from President Trump, would now revive the warrior ethos. The warrior ethos. He said that war would always be the very last resort, but when US forces did have to fight, they would fight to win. And the confidence, the steely determination that he had was something to behold in that room. It is clear that it is morning again in America, and thanks to your hard work, soon we will elect Nigel Farage as our Prime Minister, and it will be morning again in the United Kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, the United States is no longer sorry for their history, apologetic about their strengths. The United States is once again walking tall, and soon the United Kingdom will do the same. Because British people should be among the most prosperous people in the world. Instead, we languish 26th or 27th, depending on the table, in the world in terms of real GDP per person. Even though we have so much going for us. 4 of the top 20 universities in the world are here. A large number of the world's finest engineers are here. If you're in any doubt about that, just go and take a look around the offices of DeepMind, or the Dyson Institute, or the factory making Rolls-Royce, aerospace engines, and nuclear modular reactors. We have a leading position in the world in terms of financial services, and we have the best possible time zone. So why is it that the British people get poorer every year in real terms? It's because of the appallingly incompetent and Britain-hating political leadership that this country has endured for decades. There's the bureaucratic state, which has ballooned to a ridiculous size. 500,000 people are now employed in the civil service, many of whom get to work from home, all being paid on your dime. In the last 7 years, their burden on you, the taxpayer, has rocketed by 50% to £15 billion. In the age of AI, with competent leadership, there's no reason that couldn't be cut in half and still deliver a vastly superior service to the British people. But the problem with the bureaucratic state is much more pernicious than that. They act as a suffocating parasite, feasting on the dynamism and the hard work of the British people. We have far too many regulations, far too many regulators, and nowhere enough builders. Take the ridiculous announcement a couple of weeks ago about a third runway at Heathrow. Even if it does go ahead, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves says this runway will be completed in 10 years. 10 years to build a piece of tarmac. Now, and this is a country that has an incredible pedigree in building things. You know, 175 years ago, a man named Isambard Kingdom Brunel built the Royal Albert Bridge. It's over 2,000 feet long, and it carries trains 100 feet above the water. And he built it in 5 years. In the 1850s, China builds a runway in a year. They built their entire international airport in Beijing in 5 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Britain has been captured by a parasitic bureaucratic class. And when Nigel is the Prime Minister, Britain will once again be the envy of the world for its beautiful architecture and ability to build at speed. Now, speaking of news reports, you may have read the news just this week that David Lammy, I haven't even got to the punchline yet, but perhaps I have. The news that David Lammy, who's self-identified as part of the, and I quote, Caribbean community, wants to open discussion for British taxpayers to pay reparations. Now, according to these reports, he wants all of you, all of us, to pay reparations to the Caribbean nations. Well, I have some news for him. In fact, the world owes a debt of gratitude to Britain for doing more than any country in the world to abolish slavery. In fact, Britain was the first global power to abolish the slave trade, all the way back in 1807 when our Parliament passed the Slave Trade Act. Upon passing this law, Britain formed a Royal Navy squadron called the West Africa Squadron, and we dispatched it to patrol the high seas and enforce this ban on the slave trade. His Majesty's Royal Navy, the mightiest navy the world had ever seen, faced down those slave ships and forced them to comply. In doing so, the heroes of the West Africa Squadron freed over 150,000 slaves, with the sacrifice of 17,000 of its own sailors, an enormous financial cost. The world owes a debt of gratitude to Britain.
That is Zia Youssef, their Reform UK, their conference in Wiltshire. Interestingly, he mentioned David Lammy commenting about the slave trade and what actually happened rather than a lot of the things that we read about or hear about without any real research. So it was interesting that he laid the case. But stay with us because my panel and Stephen Pound will be back here to give their thoughts on the panel. What do you think? And also, I'm asking, is it fair to judge politicians on leaked private messages? This is GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
A woman of 53 has believed for 18 months she was in an online relationship with Brad Pitt.
I think we're seeing pictures. So these are the pictures that she received that made her believe that she was in this relationship with Brad Pitt.
And you'll see that some of it is in hospital because the scammer was claiming that he was suffering from cancer. This was playing very much on her emotion. So this is a divorcee who lived in Mauritius. She'd received a £700,000 divorce settlement, or £650,000 divorce settlement, I should say, and £700,000 has been taken from her through this scam.
Yeah.
As she was becoming, every time she became suspicious, the money was taken for payment of charges on gifts that she never received, and then hospital fees. There was lots of emotions being played into there. Now, as somebody, I'm a rom-com writer by trade, so I write romantic fiction. And one of the books I've written has actually been about somebody who did online dating, got herself into a whole heap of trouble. Not quite, she wasn't in a relationship with Brad Pitt, but she met somebody dodgy. So because I've written that book, I've met a lot of people who've come up to me and said, oh, it's happened to me.
It's scary in this digital age, isn't it?
They've lost 700,000, but somebody has tried it on. Somebody my question is, would a man go 18 months in a relationship online without seeing somebody and keep it going? Or is this feeding into this neediness of a particular demographic of a woman who that's better than anything else she got going on in her life, was what was being fed to her over the internet? I just
and then maybe a little bit of her knew, but she kind of just suppressed it because she
was hoping it was Brad Pitt.
Her daughter apparently for a year was saying, this can't be true, come on, think about it. But she just fell for it. But I just wonder, it's a very sad story. She's obviously now getting a lot of hate and ridicule as well.
Because she's been on French TV and she's had a huge amount of pushback from it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
"25 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Joining me now, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, political commentator Andy Williams, and we couldn't get rid of him, Labour MP Stephen Pound. He's still knocking about. Right, so listen, I'm going to start with you, Danny. Reform UK. Was his speech... I thought it was a bit shouty, like he started a bit and then he shout, like my son would do. But the content of what he was saying was what I was listening to. What was
he was tapping into what people wanted him to say. Yeah, he was just tapping into the current climate. He was juxtapositioning us against America and Donald Trump's administration, and he was saying at the moment they're walking tall in the States and we're not walking tall in the UK. Farage is going to be the next Prime Minister. He says at the moment we're languishing internationally with GDP. He tapped into the overly regulated aspect of the government, and in his view, 500,000 civil servants. Lots could be replaced by artificial intelligence. And what was interesting, he had a pop at David Lammy.
Everyone groaned when laughed when he said it.
But he had a pop at, but he also put it into the context that this is my interpretation of what he said. He tapped into this lack of cultural identity in the UK when he said that he identifies as more Caribbean than he would as, say, English. And for a lot of people who are voting reform, they're getting worried about English culture disappearing. Now, people may ask, what does English culture mean to you? But when you have people, high-profile figures, who are more or less saying that they're more Caribbean, even though he was born in London. It's just tapping into what people are worried about at the moment. Reform voters are worried about. And he talked about the slavery and the world owing a debt of gratitude to Great Britain, referenced the ending of the slavery. But I think the David Lammy thing, I think the Home Office have actually debunked what...
it was in the Telegraph, wasn't it?
Yes.
They've debunked it, saying it's not quite...
So about the reparations, it's ridiculous. We're not going to pay a penny.
No. Well, Keir Starmer's stance is that we're not going to pay anything either. Andy Williams.
I think Z Yusuf is a very effective communicator, actually, and I think they should use him more. The biggest problem I think Reform have is that at the moment, they're just the Nigel Farage party. And if they're going to go from having 5 MPs to coming anywhere near winning a general election, they need to be more than just the Nigel Farage show.
Do you genuinely think that, though? There's some MPs. You've got Lee Anderson, Z Yusuf, a great speaker. You've got Rupert Lowe. These are people who are quite prominent and quite exceptional.
But I think Z Yusuf is good. I don't think any of those other Reform MPs are serious. And I don't think there's any...
They are.
No, I don't think they are.
Lee Anderson in Ashfield, his constituents, who even though any party he chooses to join, they still want him.
With all due respect to Lee Anderson, he's not a serious national political figure. He just isn't.
I actually think he is. I would disagree with that.
Well, fair enough. But I don't think there's any serious prospect of Nigel Farage becoming the next Prime Minister. I just don't think it's going to happen. Well, you'd be better off putting your money on Wes Streeting at 10 to 1.
I don't think I'd be putting any money on Wes Streeting because he's made some interesting comments himself. Stephen Pound.
Well, you've got people like Andrew Jenkins coming who could well end up, being the Metro Mayor for Lincolnshire. But I think the issue for me is, as someone who's not actually still playing in the team, I'm on the sidelines, is I'm hearing Reform saying what they don't want and what they dislike and what they can't stand. I'm not hearing a great deal about the nuts and bolts of what they are actually going to do. It's all very well saying that the civil service is bloated. Every single Prime Minister since Pitt the Younger has tried to reduce the size of the civil service. None of them have done it. Margaret Thatcher of blessed memory, desperate. You remember when Dennis said, how many people work here? And she said about half of them. And she's desperately trying to get rid of them. It hasn't happened. So I'd like to hear a bit. I'd like to say, where's the beef? Let's hear a bit more from Reform.
I think right, Stephen, populists, and that's what Reform are. They're very good at calling out the problems. They're not very good at the solutions. So where are the policies? Now, I know we're 4.5 years out from a general election, so it's not expecting them to have a fully fledged manifesto at this stage, but it's all about the problems and not about the solutions.
Well, Kemi Badenoch said 2 weeks ago that she was not going to come up with any suggestions or proposals now for you, and yet last week she did. This idea of reducing or increasing the amount of time you have to be resident in this country before you can get citizenship. And I think the dynamic of modern politics moving and shifting so fast, so rapidly, is you have to come up with something. Kemi Badenoch has actually looked at the polls and said, I'm actually in trouble here. Big trouble. Big trouble. And so she's had to come up with something. And I think Reform are going to have to come up. It's no good just saying, we're going to stop immigration. They've got to say how, when and why.
OK, yeah, they could say that, but the reality is they're not in power at the moment and they won't know the nuts and bolts. The Labour Party have used this excuse repeatedly that they didn't know until they actually got in how big the black hole was. They didn't know all the information until they came in, which is why they've changed some of the things that they said in the manifesto and pretty much done the very opposite. So it's interesting that you and both of you, who would probably support Labour in their stance of not dishing out the exact policy things they're going to do, are now saying the opposite when it comes to Reform.
Well, no, I'm not saying. I was particularly talking about Kemi Badenoch. She's the one. I mean, Nigel Farage has never said, we're not going to tell you. He's actually, every day he's throwing out these different policies.
But you can't say how you...
I know some of their policies. I would underestimate Rupert Lowe and Lee Anderson at your peril. Personally, Andy, I think they're incredibly big figures in politics, particularly in their constituents. I know Lee Anderson is very highly thought of in the Nottinghamshire constituency, which is where I think he is.
Of course, but to become a national political figure of significance.
But he is a national political figure. If you don't like the guy, it's not really relevant. He is already a national figure of political significance. And Rupert Lowe is incredible. I think he's incredibly impressive.
And how about Richard Tice? And Richard Tice is actually pretty impressive.
He's very impressive, Richard Tice.
But the fifth one, nobody knows his name.
I don't think Richard Tice is as impressive as Lee Anderson or Rupert Lowe personally. I
don't know. But
just an opinion.
The point is that they are all pretty impressive. Again, like the fifth MP, I don't know who he is.
Exactly.
But
I know that he went to prison for domestic violence.
Well, look, I mean, people have been, you could say that about, Tulip Sadiq with Minister of Crime. So she was actually a minister. And it turns out that she had to be dropped from the party. And you've got this other Labour minister, Andrew Gwynn. So if you're going to start talking about...
I think what Andrew Gwynn did is equivalent to that.
What I'm pointing out is that
Danny's got the floor.
You could no.
He served his time,
Let me finish.
hasn't he?
Yeah.
My point is this: that if you want to compare these people, then you have to listen to the other side and hear that there are people who are also.
People can be rehabilitated.
Exactly.
The example I always give is Leslie Grantham, who played Dirty Den in EastEnders, was a convicted murderer.
Yeah.
A convicted murderer
in Germany.
And going back to the policies or the lack of substance, I know of a couple of policies that involve turning around the boats. That's one big policy that they're tapping into, and also a £20,000 threshold before you pay any income tax. So earlier on, when you said there's nothing of substance about how they're going to change politics, well, there's a couple of examples.
I don't know whether you'd be happy with any of the substance anyway. I think sometimes people deny that there's any substance to Reform UK if they just don't want them in. But there's definitely substance, and the fact that the Labour Party and the Conservative Party have colluded to not have elections, council elections, I think tells you everything you need to.
Well, Nana, if you look at the by-elections we had last Thursday.
You've got 20 seconds.
Last Thursday, we had a number of by-elections in this country. Reform stormed 3 of them. They went up from 0 to 30-40% of the poll, and they won the seats from Labour and the Conservatives.
Exactly. So there you have it. So
I wish they didn't, but
even if you didn't want to take them seriously, I think perhaps the other political parties need to keep listening. But you're with me, I'm Nana Akua. Thank you very much, Stephen Pound. My panel will be staying with me. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up in the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, does Labour losing 3 cabinet ministers in 3 months call into question Keir Starmer's judgment? But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you from the newsroom, just coming up to 34 minutes past 3. The top story, the Prime Minister has sacked one of his health ministers over offensive comments he's reported to have made in a WhatsApp group. Andrew Gwynn has also been suspended as a member of the Labour Party and has since apologised for what he calls misjudged comments. It follows reports in the Mail on Sunday claiming he reportedly made anti-Semitic comments and joked about a pensioner constituent, saying he hoped she died before the next election. It's also alleged that he attacked members of his own party, including making racist comments about Labour MP Diane Abbott and sexist comments about the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. It's been reported Donald Trump has talked to Russian President Vladimir Putin on the phone to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. According to the Telegraph newspaper, the US president said he believes the Russian leader does care about the number of people being killed. Mr. Trump also told the New York Post that Putin wants to see people stop dying. In the interview, which the newspaper said took place on board Air Force One on Friday, Mr. Trump said that he had better not say when asked how many times the two leaders have spoken, but he did confirm they maintain a good relationship. 5 Thai men held hostage in Gaza for over a year have now arrived back in their homeland. There were tears of joy at Bangkok airport as the men reunited with their families, saying they feel so grateful. The men, aged 27 to 36, were released by Hamas on the 30th of January as part of a ceasefire deal. It comes just a day after Hamas handed over 3 Israeli hostages whose gaunt appearances shocked Israelis. Israel, in return, freed dozens of Palestinian prisoners. And back here at home, train passengers are facing significant disruption today as Avanti West Coast managers stage fresh strikes over rest day working. Members of the RMT union are walking out today, specifically impacting on one of the UK's busiest rail routes. Avanti West Coast is strongly advising passengers to avoid travelling if possible, with just a limited service operating today until 5 o'clock this evening. Those are the latest headlines. A full roundup with all the top stories at the top of the hour, and Nana will be back with you after this break.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, good afternoon. This is your latest GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. We are in a quite stagnant weather situation at the moment. High pressure that has set itself up across Scandinavia is essentially acting as a blocking system and leading to a very similar weather pattern day in, day out at the moment. It's an easterly wind that set itself up, and that is providing a lot of moisture and a lot of cloud feeding in from the North Sea, with some outbreaks of rain and showers around as well. Some wintry flakes falling over higher ground routes, particularly the Pennines and the Grampians. If you are further towards the west, there'll be a few clearer spells this evening and overnight, particularly for northwestern Scotland, where it will turn quite chilly, maybe as low as -5, -6 degrees Celsius, but underneath the cloud elsewhere, temperatures will be holding up more around 3 to 4 degrees Celsius. Despite that very chilly start across northwestern Scotland on Monday, though, it is here where we're going to see the most lengthy spells of sunshine right throughout the day. Once again, for the Highlands, the Outer Hebrides, parts of Argyll and Bute, it is going to be quite a lovely, fine day. Elsewhere, cloud is going to be plaguing us, very grey and dull skies. Again, further outbreaks of rain and showers around, falling as snow once again, particularly for the Peak District and the Pennines. Tomorrow we could see a few centimetres building up during the day. We do then also have to factor in the strength of that easterly wind that will be increasing on Monday, so that's going to make it feel particularly cold. Very biting wind that, whilst temperatures on the thermometer will be around 5-6 degrees Celsius at best, it is actually going to feel more like freezing when you add on the strength of that wind, so certainly is a day to be wrapping up warm when you are outside. Generally, things stay very similar into the evening period, and actually that stagnant weather situation is going to continue for a good portion of this forthcoming week. So expect particularly eastern areas to be cloudier overall. Generally in the west, you've got a greater chance of seeing a touch more sunshine around, but temperatures still below average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's 39 minutes after 3 o'clock, fast approaching. I'm Nana Akua. This is the GB News. We are Britain's news channel. It's time now for the great British debate of this hour. I'm asking, is it fair to judge politicians on leaked private messages? Leaked WhatsApp, what's up with the Labour Party? Messages have led to the sacking of Labour MP Andrew Gwynn after shocking remarks about pensioners, Jewish figures and fellow politicians came to light. Now, Gwynn has apologised for his misjudged comments, but is the damage already done? So for the great British debate this hour, I'm asking, is it actually fair, though, to expose things that politicians have said in private messages and judge them based on those? Joining me now is veteran and pensioner Dave Bye. Dave, what do you think? What are your thoughts with this?
Well, I mean, personally, if I'd have made those statements either out in the public eye or anything like that, I'd now probably be in a little cell somewhere waiting to be interviewed by the police. And he's just said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I said that," and we're supposed to forgive him and forget? I don't think so, because all he's done is he's made it clear what his personal feelings are towards people. I mean, I'm a pensioner. I'm 77, and I've actually fought in various conditions around the world. Even as they were talking earlier on, you were talking about slavery. I mean, in 1965, I was on a ship that arrested slave traders and took them into Muscat, and they were executed. And this guy here, all of a sudden, he can say what he likes about people, about a race, about people's religion or anything else, and we're supposed to accept him as a representative of the people that voted for him. I'm sorry, the man's out of control.
Well, does it call into question the judgment of Keir Starmer to actually choose this man to be a cabinet minister? It's just shocking. Or do you think he was very good at hiding all of this?
I'm only, in a sense, I'm only repeating what has been said in the past. But it seems to me that all Keir Starmer is doing is putting people in positions of power through nepotism and cronyism. I mean, some of them have got no idea about what they're actually doing. I mean, I couldn't be an MP because I haven't got I don't think I've got the experience to be an MP. But I've got more experience in life than this guy's ever going to have. And the way he's behaving, he doesn't deserve to be an MP or even a lackey for an MP.
Well, he can't really carry on, surely, serving his constituents in any capacity if he holds them in such high contempt, which is what he was saying, you know, seeing somebody run over by a bin truck. And it's just... Who says that out loud, let alone write it down and put it in a WhatsApp chat group open to who knows who do you know what I mean?
This is what I'm saying. If I'd have made those comments, I would be under arrest now.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm not saying rightly or wrongly, but I would be, because we've seen it time and time. And Keir Starmer is the first one to shout and scream about far right, far this, far that, and yet he's employing people with those sort of sentiments and those sort of ideas, and they can actually voice those ideas in public and think they can get away with it.
It's just shocking that he thought he could put that in words, in writing, in a group, and even for him to be saying that. And I suspect some of these comments were quite old comments as well, so they weren't all new comments. And people have been in that group and allowed that to go on. I want to know who else is in that group. Who else is in that group?
Exactly, it's in the public domain, so therefore there should be an investigation. Who is he speaking to?
Exactly. And very briefly, because I've got about 20 seconds left with you, but I wanted to ask you, Nigel Farage, you're based in Clacton, your constituency's there. What do you make of him so far? He's your MP.
Well, so I've got a personal interest in Nigel Farage. Me and my partner run a Veterans Breakfast Club, and he is 100% behind us in what we do. He's helped us in a lot of ways, not politically, but personally. Yeah. And I think he's an honest guy. I mean, I like him. He's honest. I mean, I feel that I can approach him, whereas and he speaks the same language as me, if you like. Yeah. He's just moved into the area, so he's. People say, oh, he doesn't live in the area, but he does now. He's actually bought a house in the area, and he lives here, and he's part of us. He's not only just our MP; he's also the leader of the party.
Reform UK. Well, look, he'll be speaking in a little bit of a time. Dave, stay with us, watch that, and also stay with us for the documentary on Hannah Ingram-Moore. Really good to talk to you. That's Dave By. He's a veteran and a pensioner. Lovely to talk to you. Right, well, let's see what my panel make of that. Joining me, Danny Kelly and also Andy Williams. All right, I'm going to come to you, Andy Williams.
I mean, what Andrew Gwynn said is indefensible. It was absolutely right that Keir Starmer sacked him straight away as a minister. You have to feel a tiny bit sorry for him, I think.
Why?
Well, no, hang on. I'm not going to defend him at all or anything he said. Someone's betrayed his trust in a private conversation. Having said that, he's a public figure. He's an MP, and anything you put in writing, anything you're prepared to put in writing, you should be prepared to see it on the front of the Sun if you're a public figure. And what he said was there was misogynistic stuff, there was borderline anti-Semitic stuff, there were just completely unacceptable comments, and you used the word contempt. He showed contempt for his constituents, and that's the biggest sin an MP can commit.
Danny Kelly.
Did you have any sympathy for Boris Johnson when he was betrayed with Cakegate?
Well, how
someone ratted on him that he was eating cake during lockdown and he was breaking the rules.
Well, hang on, no.
Well, did you
have any?
Sorry. I don't know why we're trying to twist anything I've said.
No, I'm just asking you. It's a betrayal.
No. I've been absolutely clear that Andrew Gwynn was right to be sacked. He deserved to be sacked. He didn't break the law, though, which is different. Boris Johnson broke the law, and not only did Boris Johnson break the law, he broke his own laws, and thereby undermining public trust.
It's about betrayal.
Yeah, I don't know why.
The question I'm asking you is about betrayal.
I don't know why you're laughing.
Well, because you won't answer the question. The question is about betrayal.
Well, Boris Johnson, I think, betrayed Britain by completely failing to deliver on every one of his promises, levelling up, disastrous COVID.
So you must feel the same way about the Labour Party, because they've betrayed everybody, haven't they, with some of their promises?
So these WhatsApp messages have been going since 2019, and I think, Nana, you're right. Obviously, there was, let's just say, 5 or 6 people in this WhatsApp group. Nobody would have said anything because they haven't objected to it until now. Someone's ratted on him, so he's fallen out with somebody, so he's been ratted on. But for the last 5 or 6 years, people have been humouring him with their responses. Because they must have been, otherwise he would have stopped being an idiot. You know, people would have told him, look, stop it, you're being offensive, you're being inappropriate. But obviously no one did. I want to know who else is in this group. Because they've enabled...
Apparently there are Labour councillors in that group. Those people should be suspended from the Labour Party as well. It's completely unacceptable.
I think that's the next stage of this. Andy Williams, Danny Kelly, really good to have your company this afternoon. Stay with us. I want to know who else is in this group as well. But coming up, I sat down with Captain Tom's daughter, Hannah Ingram, in the exclusive interview.
It was a name that was picked up because it was too salacious not to, I think. A swim spa. Google it. That's the brand name. It's great. They're great little pools, but it's basically a hot tub at one end.
Well, stay with me. That is coming up just after 5 o'clock, so you won't want to go anywhere. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Worldview is next.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Jonathan, in London, we're hearing that there could be more posties from an Amazon point of view in order to limit or cut carbon emissions, but that they could put more people on foot delivering their parcels.
This is really interesting because more and more people now obviously are using Amazon and buying their shopping online or buying gifts online. And it's interesting that in London they're talking about putting their Amazon workers on foot. There are now parts of the country, I think Milton Keynes is one part of the country, where there's robots delivering parcels. Or you'll see these, well, they call them robots. You'll see these little things sort of bundling down the street.
Yes.
Sort of,
robots.
Yeah, I mean, technically they're a robot, but when I think of a robot, I think of a sort of...
A humanoid robot.
Yeah, sort of humanoid thing, sort of, Lost in Space style robot. But actually, they're sort of... little sort of carriages, little
droids,
boxes,
like Star Wars droid type.
Well, they're not
thing.
even that. They're like a little sort of, like a box on wheels, delivering parcels in places like Milton Keynes and other bits of the country. So I think this is just another example of how the world is changing. Online shopping is completely changing the way in which we all live our lives, the way in things. The way
But
in
I
which
think
things are
Milton
delivered.
Keynes lends itself to something like that. This is a newly designed town, and
exactly. That's why they're in Milton Keynes.
And I really do think that a town like that really does lend itself towards a piece of tech like that. When I think back. Our postie in Gloucestershire is a guy called Dave. He's fantastic. Everyone knows who he is. But I'm not sure that he could be replaced by one of these little droid things.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 10 minutes to 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Let's travel over to America and let's speak to the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Duddridge. Paul, it's almost as though Trump is almost godlike, creating the world in 7 days, recreating the states, getting things done. It's very, very impressive. Now, Trump will be the first sitting president to attend the Super Bowl, which he's getting that done as well.
How has this not happened before? It's like 59 years of the Super Bowl and no sitting president has been before.
more important thing, it's happening between, I think it's that, look, I know nothing about I know nothing about British football, but I know less about American football. But it's happening between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's happening in New Orleans today. And it's a big hoopla, and there's tons of commercials with celebrities in. And Trump is the first sitting president to attend. And what's more interesting is Taylor Swift's going to be there at the same time. They're going to actually be all those rumours that you've never see them in the same room at the same time. It's like, no, it's going to happen today. So Taylor Swift, all the Swifties and all the Trumpies are merging today in one beautiful coalition. So yes, that's happening today, and I can't see how that's not happened after 59 years. But anyway, another first for Trump.
I think the Swifties have realised now that the wool has come off their eyes, and they've seen that Joe Biden was totally incapable, and so there's no way they should carry on voting or supporting him. What about the Attorney General, Pam Bondi? Now, she's ordered reviews of Trump's cases as she's taking over the Justice Department. Is this a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh, it's a wonderful thing. Well, look, a few of your guests have alluded to this before. It's like we've actually got a politician that's come into office. We've got an administration that's come in and is doing what it said it would do. And one of the things they always said it would do would start turning the firepower on the bureaucratic class, if you like, and the legal class and the lawfare. Because so many times, you see this, how many times we've been disappointed in the UK when somebody comes in and they don't quite, because we'll just kick it into the long grass, we've got important business. Trump's people are like going, no, we said all along that these cases against Trump were lawfare. And so the Attorney General, it's a wonderful thing to witness. The Attorney General has stated this week that she's turning her firepower on the whole of the every single legal case against Trump and reviewing them. And it's very temperate language. She's not saying I'm going to overturn them. We're going to review them. And these are things like the January. One of the phrases was the unethical prosecutions of January the 6th.
You said that about Chagos as well. We'll review the deal, which I think probably means overturn.
Yeah.
And what about the fact that he's revoked Joe Biden and others' security clearance?
Oh, this is the best bit of the week. It's a courtesy normally between presidents and, incoming and outgoing, that they still see security documents. But as Joe Biden never reviewed any security documents in his time in the White House anyway, it won't be any change for him. But yes, that courtesy now has been revoked from Biden, but then also from people like Letitia James and Alvin Bragg, people that have used their office to prosecute Trump. So this is all part of that umbrella review. What's interesting is the little anomalies is that these people now can't enter a federal building, apparently. They have that's when the rubber hits the road, it's a nice thing to say we're revoking a security clearance, but they can't actually enter a federal building under that umbrella any longer. So it is a real they have been declawed.
It's hilarious. Paul Duddridge, thank you very much, host of the Politics People podcast. Always a pleasure. Well, stay with me, because coming up, my niggle on Andrew Gwynn's comments. Also, stay tuned to just after 5, my interview with Hannah Ingram-Moore. But now, let's get an update with your weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. This is your latest GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. We are in a quite stagnant weather situation at the moment. High pressure that has set itself up across Scandinavia is essentially acting as a blocking system and leading to a very similar weather pattern day in, day out at the moment. It's an easterly wind that set itself up, and that is providing a lot of moisture and a lot of cloud feeding in from the North Sea, with some outbreaks of rain and showers around as well. Some wintry flakes falling over higher ground routes, particularly the Pennines and the Grampians. If you are further towards the west, there'll be a few clearer spells this evening and overnight, particularly for northwestern Scotland, where it will turn quite chilly, maybe as low as -5, -6 degrees Celsius, but underneath the cloud elsewhere, temperatures will be holding up more around 3 to 4 degrees Celsius. Despite that very chilly start across northwestern Scotland on Monday, though, it is here where we're going to see the most lengthy spells of sunshine right throughout the day. Once again, for the Highlands, the Outer Hebrides, parts of Argyll and Bute, it is going to be quite a lovely, fine day. Elsewhere, cloud is going to be plaguing us, very grey and dull skies. Again, further outbreaks of rain, showers around, falling as snow once again, particularly for the Peak District and the Pennines. Tomorrow we could see a few centimetres building up during the day. We do then also have to factor in the strength of that easterly wind that will be increasing on Monday, so that's going to make it feel particularly cold. Very biting wind that, whilst temperatures on the thermometer will be around 5-6 degrees Celsius at best, it is actually going to feel more like freezing when you add on the strength of that wind, so certainly is a day to be wrapping up warm when you are outside. Generally, things stay very similar into the evening period, and actually that stagnant weather situation is going to continue for a good portion of this forthcoming week. So expect particularly eastern areas to be cloudier overall. Generally in the west, you've got a greater chance of seeing a touch more sunshine around, but temperatures still below average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British giveaway, with 2 fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It's just coming up to 4 o'clock. Now, coming up in the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me in the next few hours, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also political commentator Andy Williams. Well, coming up, I sat down with Captain Tom's daughter, Hannah Ingram-Moore, in an exclusive interview.
It was a name that was picked up because it was too salacious not to, I think. A swim spa, Google it. That's the brand name. It's great. They're great little pools, but it's basically a hot tub at one end.
Then, is Nigel Farage prepared to work with Boris Johnson to turf out Labour? What do you think?
If I can assure the honourable member for Rugby that Reform want healthcare to be free at the point of delivery, there appears to be some panic on that side of the House. I'm not surprised. What do I say? Oh, they really are panicking, aren't they?
Sources close to the Reform UK leader said that he would consider a pact with the former Prime Minister. That was, of course, Boris Johnson. But this is what Boris had to say at his last PMQs.
Hasta la vista, baby. Thank you.
So maybe he'll do a Trump and maybe he will return. Coming up, though, my niggle. I'm going to be talking about Andrew Gwynn and the Labour Party. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Sam Francis.
Nana, thank you very much and good afternoon to you. Just coming up to 2 minutes past 4. The Prime Minister has sacked one of his health ministers over offensive comments he's reported to have made in a WhatsApp group. Andrew Gwynn has also been suspended as a member of the Labour Party and has since apologised for what he called misjudged comments. It follows reports in the Mail on Sunday claiming he reportedly made anti-Semitic comments and joked about a pensioner constituent, saying he hoped she died before the next election. It also alleged that he attacked members of his own party, including making racist comments about Labour MP Diane Abbott and sexist comments about Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. Well, the Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook praised Sir Keir Starmer for acting decisively.
Comments made by Andrew Gwynn are completely unacceptable. That this is going to be a government that upholds the highest standards of conduct in public life. We're a government in service of working people, so we've taken decisive action to dismiss Andrew Gwynn as a minister, as is the case. There's a live investigation going on in terms of the Labour Party. Andrew Gwynn's been administratively suspended. He's lost the Labour whip. I don't know what was said in those WhatsApp groups. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment.
Meanwhile, Shadow Chancellor Alex Burkhardt said Andrew Gwynn's comments show Sir Keir Starmer hasn't got a hold of anti-Semitism within the Labour Party.
The worst thing that I've seen Mr Gwynn say on that group was that one gentleman was too Jewish. Now, Keir Starmer claims that he's gotten on top of this problem in the Labour Party, but he clearly hasn't. We need to know who else was on that group. Did they call Andrew Gwynn out when he said that? If not, what sanctions are going to be taken against them? You know, we need all of this out in the open as quickly as possible, because otherwise it's the same old Labour, same old anti-Semitism within the left in this country, and it shows that Labour hasn't changed at all.
In other news today, the parents of 2 girls killed in the Southport knife attack say they're looking for light in the darkness. Speaking to the Sunday Times, 7-year-old Elsie Dot Stankham and 6-year-old BB King's families remembered their daughters as confident, happy and intelligent. They opened up about their children's funerals too and the support they've received from their communities in the months since the horrendous attack. Alice de Silva Aguirre also lost her life. Well, I just want to bring you a bit of breaking news from Scotland this hour. We're hearing news that an 18-year-old student has been found dead in Stirling University. Police were called to student accommodation there on Friday afternoon after reports of a sudden death. It is at this stage being treated as unexplained, though officers say there are no suspicious circumstances. And also another line just coming into us from Dublin. A man has been arrested, reportedly following a serious incident, police there say, in Ireland. Several people believed to have been stabbed in the centre of the capital. There is a large police presence currently in the area, other emergency services also in attendance. So that breaking news just coming to us from Dublin, that a serious incident has taken place. Several people stabbed and a man arrested. Meanwhile, in the United States, it's been reported Donald Trump has talked to Vladimir Putin on the phone to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. According to the Telegraph newspaper, the US president said he believes the Russian leader does care about the number of people being killed. Mr. Trump also told the New York Post Putin wants to see people stop dying. In the interview, which the newspaper said took place on board Air Force One on Friday, Mr. Trump said he better not say when asked how many times the two leaders have spoken, but confirmed they do maintain a good relationship. Warnings are continuing today over the potentially deadly cold snap hitting the UK. The Met Office says temperatures could plunge to -7 degrees in parts of the country, with areas set to be hit by snow and ice. The UK Health Security Agency issued yellow cold health alerts for North East, North West, Yorkshire, the Humber and the South East, which is in place right through to Tuesday. And it means that vulnerable people, including the elderly or people with serious health conditions, could be at increased risk due to those plunging temperatures. And Friends star David Schwimmer has called on ex-owner Elon Musk to remove Kanye West from the platform. It comes after West appeared to write a barrage of posts on his social media account, making offensive comments, including about Jewish people, and appeared to mock domestic violence. The actor Mr. Schwimmer took to Instagram to urge Mr. Musk to remove West from X because of what he called his hate-filled, ignorant bile. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you for a full roundup in around half an hour. Now, though, it's over to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 8 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. WhatsApp with the Labour Party. Remember this?
I'm absolutely determined to restore honesty and integrity to government.
I'm thinking that perhaps members of Keir's party, and in particular his front bench, don't actually understand the meaning of integrity. To lose one minister is bad enough, but to lose three in as many months and just after 7 is a very bad taste. Andrew Gwynn, Labour MP for Gordon and Denton and Health Minister, is the 3rd minister to leave Sir Keir's cabinet in disgrace. He made racist, sexist and offensive comments in a WhatsApp chat group. Possibly the worst comment, although there was serious competition for that spot, was a response to a letter from a 72-year-old woman who said that she had not voted Labour but wanted to inquire about bin collections. In the letter, she wrote, "As you have been re-elected, I thought it would be an appropriate time to contact you with regard to the bin collections." Andrew shared the letter in the group chat and proposed this response: "Dear resident, F your bins. I'm re-elected and without your vote. Screw you. P.S. Hopefully you'll have croaked it by the all-outs, which are local elections to you and I." It was also reported that he wrote this about another constituent who rides a bike: "I have positive visions of him getting mown down by an Elsa Waste HGV whilst he's cycling to the Fallowfield Loop. We couldn't be that lucky." Perhaps he's taken lessons from Wes Streeting, who tweeted for Jan Moore to be run over by a train. Admittedly, Wes has since apologised, and it was before he became an MP. But seriously, what kind of people think it's a good idea to write this down, let alone think it? But Labour ministers are dropping like flies. First, it was Louise Haig, an ex-Transport Minister. After a spent conviction resurfaced, Louise claimed her mobile phone was stolen in a mugging whilst she was working for insurer Aviva. That was about 10 years ago. However, Louise found the phone and never alerted her employer. She pleaded guilty to fraud. Keir Starmer apparently knew everything, or so we were told. But her pious position was untenable. Louise had previously echoed Keir's sentiments that you can't be a lawmaker and a lawbreaker. She had to go. Then there was Tulip Siddiq, the anti-corruption minister. Sadly for Tulip, historic problems, including a property that she accepted from a developer who had links with her aunt. Her aunt happens to be an ex-dictator in Bangladesh. Tulip was being investigated by the authorities there for corruption. The irony? Well, of course, she had to resign before she was pushed. And now it's Andrew Gwynn. How can he possibly be allowed to continue as an MP in any capacity when he denigrates his own constituents? Andrew has been stripped of his ministerial role and suspended by the Labour Party pending an investigation. In a statement, Andrew said, "I deeply regret my badly misjudged comments and apologise for any offence I've caused. I've served the Labour Party all my life, and it was a huge honour to be appointed a minister by Sir Keir Starmer." Well, let's see if Sir Keir has enough integrity to report into the Parliamentary Standards Committee, which could potentially trigger a by-election, leaving the door open to the Tories or reform. Right, so it's just 11 minutes after 4 o'clock. Here with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, Labour Minister sacked for alleged offensive comments. The MP for Gordon and Denton caught out, wishing death on a non-Labour voter. As well as mocking Jewish names and female MPs, it's only been 7 months and into the government. And, of course, 3 ministers have already left Labour. The scandals seem to be piling up. Then I have a sit-down with Captain Tom's daughter, Hannah Ingram-Moore, in an exclusive interview.
There's a name that was picked up because it was too salacious not to, I think. A swim spa. Google it. That's the brand name. It's great. They're great little pools, but it's basically a hot tub at one end.
And in a few moments, we'll be going live to Wiltshire as Reform UK leader Nigel Farage addresses their members. All of that is coming up. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. Right, joining me now, my panel. Let's get reaction for the monologue or niggle. Joining me, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, also political commentator Andy Williams. Andy, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Go on.
Go on.
Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you are. I mean, as I said, Andrew, well, with caveats, Andrew Gwynn, absolutely right to be sacked. Keir Starmer's dealt with this decisively, got rid of him immediately. I don't think we can say that this reflects on the Labour Party in a particular bad way. This is about...
Really?
No, I'll tell you why. Because this is one individual and his appalling comments that have been made in private, leaked, and he has deservedly been sacked. That's his political career over. Whether or not he remains as an MP, I think is an open question. But I would say if you're showing that level of contempt for your constituents, then your constituents should have a right to, you know, let's have a by-election. Maybe he wants to stand again, and let's see what the voters think. But what I would say is
that... Well, they can have a recall if they don't feel it's dealt properly.
Correct, absolutely. Absolutely, and let's see if that happens. But... You know, I would say that and it's not tit for tat, but look at the Tory government of the last 14 years. We had sexual misconduct. We had Bob Stewart losing the whip for a racially aggravated public order offence. We've had Nadine Dorries and Matt Hancock swanning off to Australia during working hours to go, I'm celebrity. So my point is, this is not a party political question, and I'm not defending Labour. I
don't think those things are on a par, and the reason why is because, in truth, he showed contempt for his constituents.
I agree with that.
And they're the people that voted. So had any of those done that, these are misconducts, and, you know, the Tory party have been punished for their behaviour. But let me finish. They've been punished for their behaviour, but... If you show contempt for the constituents and the people that voted you in, then you're not fit to be an MP for any party. Danny Kelly.
Also, those scandals were over 14 years. These 3 things have happened in 6 months. I don't for one second believe that he wanted that elderly constituent to be mown down by a dumper truck. I don't believe... Nana, you and I disagree on this.
I think it, yes.
I don't... Well, I don't think he's...
I think the sentiment was that he wanted her out of the way, and that's not...
What, hit by a bus?
Out of the way in whatever form, and he came out with something like that. He's apologised, so we'll...
He's only apologised because he was being ratted on.
But the point is, he was... The sentiment he was saying that he wanted older constituents to die because they won't vote for him.
OK. One thing that was really interesting was taking the mickey out of the Jewish community as well.
It's ridiculous.
Which is just reinforcing the perception that Labour have got a problem with Zionism and Israel.
The Labour left do have a problem. The hard left of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, who I did not support, who I was not a member of the Labour Party when Jeremy Corbyn was leader of the Labour Party, because he and his clan are consistently and have consistently said and done anti-Semitic things. Simple as that. And I'm afraid that Andrew Gwynn's comments there are, you know, that strain is still there, I'm afraid.
I don't think Starmer. I feel that. Look, I'm not a fan of Keir Starmer, but I don't think it's his fault. I don't think that
he picked these people.
Yes, but
he's picked these people.
But he didn't know about these comments, and that's the crux of it.
But when he knew about Louise Hay, because she said that he knew about it, she was picked for the cabinet, which is completely. It's not a wise move. And Tulip Sadiq, who was a minister, she had links to her aunt, and obviously her aunt is...
But did he know about this?
Well, he would have known about the aunt, because the aunt was the head of a party in Bangladesh, and the aunt was a dictator who was the head of that party. She was the Prime Minister for 15 years, and he would have known that she was... the aunt was corrupt. So Tulip Sadiq had close links with the aunt.
I wonder whether Starmer handpicks these people, though. I think he picks the cabinet, and then surely the cabinet will pick people, the people below them. I don't think Starmer employs them all, does he?
Well, I think there's two things. First is that I do think Keir Starmer has been guilty of naivety. I think he's been very naive because he should have known that the Louise Hay stuff would have come back to bite her and therefore him. So I think he's been naive, and I think it shows frankly, his political inexperience. I think that's been a real problem. But the reality is, and this is not defending Labour or anyone else, the reality is if you have a 100-strong team of ministers, some of them are going to say and do stupid stuff.
No,
they always have in politics.
I'm sorry.
They always will.
I'm sorry.
And this is not reflective of Keir Starmer's
This is reflective of Keir Starmer's Labour Party, and we've had Lord Mandelson apologising for calling Trump was it a white supremacist or a danger to the world?
Well, I think he's
and
right.
as far as a race and as a racist or
well, I think
whatever.
he is.
But you may think that, but actually. Madison has apologised to those things, and what evidence? What evidence?
He has to now.
So what evidence do you have that Donald Trump is those things? What evidence?
Well, just look at the track record of all the things he's said in public.
Well, like what?
Look, we're not debating Donald Trump.
Well, no, you've made a statement. You said you've just said that
I think
he is a racist and all those things. So
I think he has said racist
a danger
things.
to the world.
I think he's a massive danger to the world. I think he's a danger to the security of the world, to the world order. I think he's a danger to the world economy. Let's see how it goes with this tariff nonsense. Well, I think he's a massive danger.
The tariff nonsense, the border crossings across to Mexico, what percentage do you think they're down by?
Border crossings?
Yeah.
We were talking
From
about
illegal,
tariffs.
yeah. So you said the tariffs are ridiculous. He put tariffs on Mexico of 25%, and unless, of course, they stop the fentanyl on the border crossings, what percentage do you think those crossings are down by?
I don't know.
90%.
Right.
90%. That's not a danger to the world. They were bringing fentanyl in, which was a danger to the American people and the world. He stopped that.
I don't believe
He stopped that. This is an example.
I don't believe that overall the world is in a safer place because Donald Trump is president.
Do you think it was safe under Joe Biden?
Well, I think Joe Biden was not equipped to be president for most of his presidency because of his age and because of his condition.
So the answer is no, it wasn't. So we've got somebody who's definitely better than Joe Biden.
What? I mean, it's a terrible choice.
Only time will tell whether he's a threat to the world. Let's see if he can do something with Russia and Ukraine.
Well, already the Middle East...
He said that would be solved in 24 hours, by the way.
Do you remember what he said about Israel? He said that if they haven't stopped fighting by the time he comes into office, they'll be held to pay. So they stopped fighting. So you may say he's a...
And do you know what? On the ceasefire, I agree with you. I don't think that would have happened without him. But, and this is where he is a danger, now he's saying, oh, we're going to turn Gaza into the American Riviera and clear out the... I mean, it's just absolutely appalling comment.
Well, it's interesting that, because the people of Gaza were complaining about Gaza being Gaza and that they wanted some other land. And now he said, well, we'll take that off you and you can go somewhere else. They don't want that either. I think, this is my view is this, that I think they will probably return, but it's a bomb site. There are tunnels all over the place. It is a bomb site, so something needs to be done and someone needs to step in to fix it.
Yeah, because he said that it's just been going on. Historically, it just continues the same cycle of violence, and the two-state solution isn't appearing anytime soon. And so he's come up with something novel, and I think it's incredibly incendiary to the Palestinian people to say, look, we're going to ship you out.
Absolutely.
And then we're going to rebuild your gaff. And then he said it's open to the world's people. OK, now, listen, I like Trump. You and I will disagree about Donald Trump. But I think what he said was inflammatory, because the Palestinian people would think, OK, so I'm going to move... where am I going to move to?
Well,
Qatar. We're going to rebuild, and then am I allowed back in?
Maybe they'll appreciate Gaza. Maybe they'll see it as actually a solution and somewhere that they can call their home, because that's been the problem. But when we talk about this and people say, there's historic problems, it's historic... Slavery is historic. There are so many things that we could go back on and say, oh, because of this and because of that, because of this, because of that. To me, it's time for them to stop this blaming the past and start looking at the present and the future.
That's an idealistic way to look at it.
It's not idealistic.
It is, because it's the perfect situation.
No, but that's what I do. So I don't go, oh, because of the slave trade. I don't think my family were ever slaves. If anything, they're probably slave owners. But I don't go, oh, because of this and because of that years ago. Now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't do that if they want to, but I'm saying that there's no benefit to it. So it's time to try.
You're right, there is no benefit to it.
And I don't think it's idealistic. I think it's a realistic thing if they tried it.
It can't be that simple because they would have tried it.
Well, I don't think some people have. In fact, the Israelis were saying that the people in Gaza were educated to kill Jewish people, and they were. They were puzzles and they were indoctrinated. So that indoctrination needs to stop. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll never get anywhere.
But Trump should have said, we'll ship you out, we'll rebuild it, and then you can come back in. What he said was, it's a city for the world.
He left it open.
Yeah,
that's what he said.
Which is not only inflammatory, but also shows a fundamental misunderstanding of the root of the conflict in the first place, which is that they believe it's their land and they want to stay there.
Yeah.
Well, before that, they weren't happy with that land and they wanted some other land. So what will make someone happy? Ultimately, rebuild it. And if he's saying it's open to the world, then let's see if the people from Gaza can return. If he's paying to have it all done up...
That's what he should have said. We'll ship you out, then we'll bring you back.
But anyway, the fact that he's created a conversation about the land and made an appreciation of the land for the people who are on it...
It's never going to stop.
Well, listen, we could talk about this forever. Listen, stay with us. GBNews.com/your say up to your thoughts. But Nigel Farage is on the stage now and he is about to speak. He is at the Reform Conference in Wiltshire. We are bringing his speech to you live, and then make sure you stay with me, because just after 5 o'clock I will be bringing you that documentary that I had, that conversation, that interview with Hannah Ingram-Moore. Well, what do you think Nigel's going to say about a pact with Boris Johnson?
Well, Boris Johnson, love him or loathe him, Boris Johnson is still very popular. I've driven 96 miles to get here, Andy, and I'll be driving 96 miles back. This is a common thing.
It's been a long time. An hour and 20 minutes before he says it. It's usually a lot earlier.
And there are great swathes of the Midlands who still think very fondly of Boris Johnson. Now, is he still a political heavyweight? I'm unsure, but there are so many people who still say, bring back Boris. I really miss Boris Johnson. And because politics, a lot of people want personality to be superseded by substance with politics, but a lot of people like personality, and Boris Johnson's got a massive personality.
There's no doubt about that. And actually, if you look at Boris Johnson's successors, I can understand why people, with the exception of Keir Starmer, who I think is going to be a far better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson. The problem with Boris Johnson is that he did not deliver on his fundamental, on his core promises, levelling up, which was the absolute kind of, the silver thread through his government, didn't deliver.
Well, he had a lot of things to contend with, like COVID and sorting out Brexit, so I'm not really going to blame him heavily for not being able to deliver. And then, of course, the political arena was consumed with Partygate and wouldn't leave him be to get on with it. But right now, Nigel Farage is taking to the stage in Wiltshire for the Reform Conference there, and he's just about to speak.
Well, thank you very much indeed. What a wonderful, warm reception on this Wiltshire afternoon. Now, I've got a very important message to show you. Would you like a quick flash? We have reached 200,000 members! How about that? Now, the live ticker, which has gone down now, and I'll tell you why in a moment. I've become obsessed with the live ticker. I wake up, this one's working still, is it? Let's have a look, shall we? Oh, we're roaring on now, aren't we? Way! Now, the idea behind this was that as we got past 100,000, we realised that the Conservative Party had sent out 131,680 ballot papers in their last leadership election. So we thought, well, we'll put that up, and who knows, maybe we'll go past it. On Boxing Day morning, we went past that number, only to have the leader of His Majesty's loyal opposition accuse us of fraud, saying we were making it up. Well, we weren't. because we got people to come in and check and look at the back end, and it's all absolutely legit. So I was thrilled to go past that number. By the way, I have it on good authority now that the Conservative paid-up membership is now less than 100,000. So, since we launched this, and by the way, in the modern world, to have got here this quickly, isn't it truly extraordinary? Doesn't it show you something is happening in this country? People want real political leadership. They want real change. That's what that tells you. That's what that tells you. But as soon as I come off stage, that message will change. And it will say that the Labour Party... Oh, yeah, we're coming for them. Don't you worry about that. That message will say, as I leave this stage, it'll change, and it will say that the Labour Party have 309,000 members, and when we overtake them, we will be the biggest political party in this country. That's our goal. That's our aim. That's our target. Now, if you read your Sunday newspapers, you'll see there's much talk of me doing deals with the Conservative Party. Many years ago, sir, they were a very, very successful political organisation, but sadly, they betrayed the country with open-door immigration, with increased taxes, with not delivering Brexit, and they are now going to become a party of history, sir, because we are going to replace them. So let me be clear. If you do a deal with somebody, and perhaps I'm old school, because I believe that my word is my bond, all right? But if I shake someone's hand and do a deal, I look into their eyes and I do the deal on the basis that I trust the person that I'm doing a deal with. I made, I think, a very magnanimous gesture as leader of the Brexit Party back in 2019. When I said we would stand down in 320 seats to give Boris a clear run to get in and get Brexit done. And it was the right thing to do at the time. It may not feel like it today, but it was, I think, a moment to put the interests of the country before the interests of myself or the interests of the party. And it was the right thing to do. But with a majority of 80, do you know what? They didn't even say thank you, which shows you what low-grade human beings most of them are. And they betrayed everything about Brexit. Brexit was about taking back control of our borders. Brexit was about reducing the numbers coming into our country. Brexit was about getting rid of excessive legislation that ties up so much of the time and effort and money of the 5.5 million people out there, men and women, that run small businesses. Brexit was about re-establishing confidence in who we were as a country. None of it was delivered, and I will not be doing deals with any individuals or any party that I view to be dishonourable and undeserving of ever being in government again in any capacity. And to go into the 2010 election, the 2015 election, the 2017 election, telling us they'd reduce net migration to tens of thousands a year. To win the majority saying the numbers would reduce, and then to finish up in 1 year alone with net 1 million people coming into Britain is as big a betrayal of a promise made to the British people as there has ever been in political history, and they must never, ever be forgiven for doing it. But it would appear that the rise of reform is prompting changes in the other parties. Not just Kemi giving a speech the other day about how tough she's going to be on immigration, the very same Kemi who campaigned for foreign students to bring dependents with them. Quite why coming to university means bringing a mum, I've never, ever fully understood. But the Labour Party will be going on the attack tomorrow. They'll be showing us how successful they are at deporting people who've come here illegally. That's their big plan. What they won't tell you is over half of those that are going voluntarily, that many are getting £3,000 to go. Oh, yes. And I want to ask a question of Yvette Cooper, who'll be talking about this tomorrow, so let's do it now. How many of those young men that have crossed the English Channel in small dinghies since you got into government have been deported on those planes? I think we all know the answer, don't we? So we're not going to buy in to any of this at all. And I maintain that a 10 million increase in the population of our country over the course of the last 20 years has devalued the living standards of everybody in this country. Everybody in this country. It's truly incredible. The wave of people that came under Boris Johnson from 2021, of the millions that came, only 20% are working and contributing. The rest are costing us, the taxpayer. It's an outrage, and we're the only party that actually has the courage to stand up and say that anyone that comes here illegally will be deported. Simple as that. Simple as that. And we're the only party that will say that overall migration needs to be, this is the one net zero we approve of. No more population increase through immigration for many years to come until we get some hope of sorting out the mess that we're in. We haven't got enough houses, we can't get GP appointments, our roads are completely overloaded, our infrastructure is crumbling. No population rise through immigration with a reform government is a promise that we make to you. But to understand the kind of government we've got today, we need to look at the fiasco around Machagos Islands. And this is just the most, and I know Richard spoke about it earlier, but it's really important. A piece of sovereign British territory, 1,300 miles away from Mauritius, that Mauritius have never, ever owned. And Mauritius, with whom we signed a treaty back in 1968, and by the way, even then, we gave them money. But for Keir Starmer and his government to pretend that a ruling of the UN's International Court of Justice, which has no legal authority over this country whatsoever, is somehow the reason to give away these islands. And it's led to David Lammy, our Foreign Secretary, or left-wing sixth former, I'm not quite sure which. But it's led to David Lammy saying, don't worry, there's no threat to Gibraltar, there's no threat to the Falkland Islands, because the people of those islands will decide their future. Well, no one's asked the displaced Chagossian community what they want, and it's pretty clear they want to go back and resettle on some of the islands. And we as a British government should allow them to do that. It would be right and proper, and it would actually deal with the injustice that was done to them back in 1968. But of course, it is the island of Diego Garcia that matters. This is the most important military base for America anywhere in the world outside of mainland America. And let's face it, folks, Without America, we are defenseless. We need America. And Diego Garcia is one of the single most important things we give in this special relationship. But it turns out that Philip Sands, KC, one of Keir Starmer's closest friends, has been working for the Mauritian government for years, that he even went to Chagos Islands. This is a British citizen. He went to Chagos Islands. He boasted about beating, as he saw it, the British government in the International Court of Justice, and he put a Mauritian flag on sovereign British territory. Now, in years gone by, he'd have gone to the Tower of London. But actually, what he's doing and what Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, who says that everything about the British Empire is racist, these people hate our country. They hate our history. They are giving away a vital strategic asset, one that actually, because it's there, stops the spread of communist China in many of those parts of the world. They're endangering world peace. Starmer's friends have made money out of this. It's against our national interest. And frankly, I think what the British government are doing over Chagos is not far short of an act of treachery. And I mean that. Oh, and then there's the money. So it's generally agreed that £9 billion we will pay for somebody to have something that is ours already. All right? And the Chagosian Prime Minister, the Mauritian Prime Minister, boasted last week in his parliament that the money, the payments, would now be inflation-linked. All right. So let's assume that the payment is £90 million a year. The Times this week thought £90 million a year would be the fee. And inflation-linked, some speculated, you might have read this, it would mean 18 billion. Did you read that? Yeah. Okay. It's wrong. If inflation runs at 3% for the next 99 years, and £90 million a year is linked to inflation, the total cost we will pay the Mauritian government for this is £52 billion. £52 billion, which is more than the entire defence budget this year. It is literally, we'll be paying within a few years more than the cost of the winter fuel payment every single year to do something that is against our interests and will damage our relationship with America. And let me say this. If Reform form the next government, anybody here believe that Reform could? Thank you. They're still awake. That's good. If Reform form the next government, we will abrogate the treaty in the same way that Mauritius have done with our 1968 treaty. We will cease all payments, and if we have to, we'll put visa restrictions on Mauritians and end tourist flights to their islands. We will not put up with this, and nor should we. Let's defend the national interest. Let's put Britain first. I'm also very keen that a Reform government, that we re-industrialise Britain. Let's get people back into proper, well-paid working jobs. The madness. I mean, even some of the people you met outside earlier. No, well, some people like green hair. I don't know, but there we are. But even the greenies that you met earlier, everyone knows we'll be using gas and oil up until at least 2050. So rather than importing it, why not produce our own oil and gas and have many, many well-paid jobs? We have closed down We have closed down most of our chemical plants, most of our manufacturing, all of our aluminium smelting, nearly all of our primary steel production, and we import the goods from India and China in the name of saving the planet, when we produce less than 1% of global CO2, and what we're doing is making no difference at all. It is as if a collective madness has come upon the entire political class. A political class who in most cases have never had a job in their lives, are out of touch. And to think that a British manufacturer now has power costs that are 6 times that of his American counterpart shows you the sheer crass idiocy, moronitude, stupidity. I think moronitude's a new word, by the way, but anyway. You never know. I did get debanking into the Oxford English Dictionary, so you never know. So we're building some very positive plans, and I tell you what, I think that what is happening in America is going to be a great help to us in reform and our movement. I was just about the only public figure in Britain that stood up and defended McDonald back in 2015 and 2016. And I've never, ever wavered in thinking that even if his brash New Yorker style is not your cup of tea, that actually this man was a good thing, not just for America, but actually for peace in the world. And I can't tell you how honoured I was to be in that room in Mar-a-Lago that night of the 5th of November when he won. I'm proud to call him a friend, and I think the start he's made with good common sense. I mean, who thinks that 6'3" men should compete in swimming events against women? I don't, he doesn't, and nor do you. So amazing the start they've made, and yes, cutting the size of the administrative state. They've been having a go at the US foreign aid budget, but think about our foreign aid budget. We've been giving money to India, Argentina, China, all sorts of countries, all sorts of crazy causes. We must cut the size of the public sector. We must cut the size of the administrative state. And we must understand that actually, if we're going to get ourselves out of trouble, we'll only do it through hard work, making money, getting tax revenue, without which we can't afford to have pensions, we can't afford to have health. And I want to say this to you, and I really mean this, I feel, and one of the reasons I came back out of sort of semi-retirement last year to throw myself back into the front line, and I did it because I thought to myself so hard, what are the things that really, really matter? And it seemed to me that family, community and country were the things that I cared about, were the things that the silent majority of Brits care about. And these were the things that inspired me to go back into the front line of politics. But you know something? All of those things are seriously threatened. Our country is in very much deeper trouble than many care to admit. We are getting poorer individually. Our national debt is exploding. Societally, you only have to look at the grooming gangs. Abomination, what other word can I use, to realise the trouble that we're in. Conventional policing has disappeared. Crime is accepted. Shoplifting is accepted. This country, unless we do something, will be completely unrecognisable as all of us know it and love it within a decade. We might just be the last throw of the dice. This might well be just one of those moments when it takes something radical to get a grip, to turn this around, to change attitudes. And that's really why I'm back doing this and devoting my life to it. And I'm so honoured and thrilled to have great colleagues with me, some of whom you've seen on the platform this afternoon to have a couple of 100,000 people now paying their membership money, hundreds of thousands of others who've logged online as supporters. But I'm in Wiltshire today for one very specific reason. We have on May the 1st, now you've got elections in Wiltshire, you've not been cancelled. Although 5.5 million people have had their vote taken away, which I think is a complete and absolute total disgrace in what should be a democracy. I really do. But you've got to vote. You've got to vote. And we need to be stronger in Wiltshire. We've got lots of you signed up. By the way, we filled this place out within a couple of days on one email. Didn't even need to advertise, and we could have filled it 2 or 3 times over. So well done you for getting in quickly. But for the People's Army to be a success, for us to succeed on May the 1st on the ground, and this is our first big test, isn't it, since the general election, we've got to show that those opinion polls are real. And by the way, aren't those opinion polls incredible? I mean, absolutely incredible. In the hall outside, as you leave, you will see tables for each of the constituencies in Wiltshire. You'll see a table at the back of the hall which says sign up here. And what I need you to do, if you want to help us and do your bit in whatever way you can in our historic mission, and a mission that I just feel we can't afford to fail at. There's so much at stake. Otherwise, what do we leave to those that come behind us, other than a completely broken and betrayed country? I'm not going to put up with that, and I want you to help me in making sure we prevent that. Are you going to help me in preventing that? Yes. Good. So I need you, please, go to whatever table is from your area. Let your local branch know who you are. Do what you can. Deliver leaflets. Speak to friends and family. Go round the pubs, as I've been doing now for decades. Although, to be honest, I haven't got quite as much time as I used to have, but never mind. But what I also need, I need more of you to stand up and put yourself forward to be considered to be a candidate in the Wiltshire County elections on May the 1st. You, sir, you're nodding. Are you prepared to stand up and be a candidate? You're standing already. Well done you. Well done you. But I need people. So come on, are there some of you in this audience who would consider putting your names forward to stand in these elections? Yeah, who said yes? Stand up. Anybody else prepared to put themselves forward to be candidates in these elections? More people standing up over there, and over there, and over there, and over there, and over there. Whoa! This is incredible. This is incredible. This, for those of you watching this, and keep standing, please, for a moment. For those of you watching this on the live stream, when we get huge numbers that watch this live, and they're interested parties, they're press, they're all sorts. For those of you watching this on live stream, if you haven't joined already, get online and join now. And have a look at what these people are doing. Something extraordinary, something remarkable, something historic is happening in British politics. The good, ordinary folk of Wiltshire, today, right before my eyes, are standing up and saying they're going to fight for our country. We need to put Britain first, and we intend to make Britain great again. Thank you very much indeed.
So that was Nigel Farage live in Wiltshire. He's calling on people to join his party in that region, and he's talking about by-elections in May. He talked a lot of things. He talked about immigration. He talked about the Chagos deal, Diego Garcia, how important it was. He called it treachery that we were giving it away. And he talked about the net zero agenda. He called it collective madness, and it's come over the political classes. There's talks about giving money to India. Obviously, that's in our foreign aid budget. And the fact that we need to be focusing on family, community and country. Those were his 3 things. He said all the British people will be focusing on that as he talks to them in their communities. Well, he said put your hand up if you want to join Reform. I'm wondering if Ben Habib's hand has gone up. Ben Habib joins me now. Ben Habib.
Well, as people might know, I have slightly famously left the party.
And not tempted to go back, though, the energy.
No, I'm not tempted to go back. And I've got to be careful what I say, because if I say anything remotely critical, you know, Nigel will be saying that Ben's bitter and twisted. And I'm not bitter and twisted, but there are a few things on which I need to pull him up. The first of those things is Brexit. You know, he talks about how Boris Johnson squandered Brexit, but he actually accepts that Brexit's done, even though Northern Ireland has been left behind. If you hear Nigel's previous pronunciations on Brexit, he says Brexit's done. In my mind, by no measure has Brexit been done. We've left part of the country behind in the European Union. He talked extensively about the Chagos Islands, the importance of their location, the Diego Garcia base, but he didn't mention Northern Ireland. No. And that is not just a British Indian overseas territory, that is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. He's on the record for saying that a united Ireland is inevitable, that Mary Lou MacDonald is a perfectly reasonable human being. These things are an affront to anyone who believes in the union of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and I'm afraid I'm in that camp. When we were fighting for Brexit, we all knew the withdrawal agreement was awful. Nigel knew it was awful. He would have been on channel after channel saying it was wretched. I took Nigel out for dinner. Was this recent? No, I'm going to break a confidence. I took Nigel out for dinner in 2020, along with Rupert Lowe, and now the sadly passed Robert Rowland. And the 3 of us tried to convince Nigel that he mustn't leave the political battlefield because Brexit was being betrayed. And Nigel absolutely turned on me, and he said, it's all right for you. You were born with a silver spoon in your backside.
Were you?
Of course I wasn't. I've had the great privilege of a good education. But he turned on me, but my father comes from a very humble background. I've had the great privilege of good education. That's academic. The point is, we wanted Nigel to stay on the battlefield. He didn't want to, and I understood that. Because he said he'd fought for Brexit for 20 years, he now wanted to go off and do what he, commercially do whatever he wished to do. But Brexit wasn't done. He vacated the battlefield. And he then said Brexit was done. And that created real problems for us. And then the other bits of enigmatic behaviour, which I really can't get to grips with. He talks about the betrayal on our borders, the mass immigration that's taken place. But he's on the record with your own Steve Edgington a couple of months ago saying that he wasn't concerned about the rate of demographic change in this country. He said just now that he wanted the deportation of all illegal migrants. But in the same interview with Steve Edgington, he said he wasn't in favour of the mass deportation of illegal migrants who are already in the country. He said that that was a logistical difficulty. Well, I don't care whether it's a logistical difficulty. All illegal migrants, 1.2 million estimated in the United Kingdom, should be detained and then deported.
Well, didn't he say that in his speech?
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's enigmatic.
Well,
he's enigmatic. But he's enigmatic. So when he... And then the other things that he's doing is having explained the importance of leaving the EU, understanding that we've got to be a proud, independent, sovereign state, family, community, country. He then goes on to have people like Nick Candy as his treasurer, who on the day that he was appointed treasurer came out in favour of Tony Blair and Mandelson. Now, to anyone on our side of the debate, Tony Blair and Mandelson are the devils. You wouldn't have them anywhere near friendship. You wouldn't be applauding them. They put the country on the path on which it then resulted in the country being so damaged in the way that Nigel was describing. I understand that. No. The time for political expediency is over. And Nigel should get it. Expediency is done. It's political expediency which got this country into the trouble it's in. What we need now is robust ideologues who won't take the low, easy road, who will take the high road and do what's needed to deliver this country from from the existential threats that it faces. To put forward, for example, Charlie Mullins as a prospective parliamentary candidate, which on the same, not parliamentary, council candidate, on the same day Charlie Mullins reinforced his belief in Brexit, in remaining in the EU. He came on GB News and he said, if I could vote again, I would vote to remain. He was putting forward a candidate who actually believes in the liberal global order, the antithesis of what reform is all about.
Ben.
Yeah, no, I know you're going to say, Ben, you're being pedantic.
No, I wasn't going to say that at all.
Yeah.
I'm saying if you feel that way, then why on earth have you left the party political scene?
Because even though...
It would be very useful.
Even though Nigel talks about 200,000 members, the party's only got 3 members. Nigel Farage, Richard Tice, and a guy called no one's heard of, called Mayor Tasha's Army, who was the treasurer of the company, in 2019 when the party was set up. The new constitution, which they kept promising is going to be delivered, even if it is one day delivered, puts Nigel in an unassailable position. There is no checks and balances in the party. So if you have an enigmatic...
All these things can be worked out. So all these things, and they take time. You need to do it correctly, you need to do it properly.
Yeah.
You don't rush in, and they don't have to
Absolutely.
rush. So they will have to do those things anyway.
No, the draft constitution, which I understand is now with the Electoral Commission, does not democratise the party. I have a real issue with that. I have a real issue with the fact that Nigel still owns the company that actually is Reform UK, the party. And he keeps talking about changing it from a company limited by shares to one limited by guarantee, but you can't legally do it. It's actually impossible. So I don't know what's going on. Nigel is an enigma, and he needs to get ideologically sound if he's going to save this country.
Right, well, Ben Habib, that's Ben Habib, around by Ben Habib. Cut this from one end to the next and just put it out there. All right, well, listen, stay with us. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Thank you very much for your thoughts, Ben Habib. My panel will be joining me, but stay tuned, because coming up next, the interview with Hannah Ingram-Moore. You will not want to miss that. Do not go anywhere. Keep it at GB News.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. First, you'll win a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash to spend however you like. You'll also receive the very latest iPhone 16, and we'll send you on a shopping spree with £500 to spend in your favourite store. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GBNews, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome. It's 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next hour, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly and political commentator Andy Williams. Still to come, I sat down with Captain Tom's daughter Hannah Ingram-Moore in an exclusive interview.
It was a name that was picked up because it was too salacious not to, I think. A swim spa, Google it, that's the brand name. It's great, they're great little pools, but it's basically a hot tub at one end.
Well, don't go anywhere. That is on the way in a matter of minutes, so stay here on GB News. Also, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has just spoken, and of course you can catch up with all of the stuff here on GB News, gbnews.com/your say. Should they join forces, Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage?
He betrayed the country with open-door immigration, with increased taxes, with not delivering Brexit, and they are now going to become a party of history, sir, because we are going to replace them.
So I don't think there's any chance of a reunion soon, but stay with us because before we get started, let's get your latest news with Sam Francis.
Very good evening to you. We're fast approaching 2 minutes past 5. We'll start with a recap of the latest from the Reform UK conference, who say they are now the fastest growing political party in the country, with more than 200,000 members. At a regional conference in Wiltshire, Nigel Farage said their next target is overtaking Labour's 309,000 members. He called the party's growth extraordinary, with a live membership ticker on the screen tracking that rise. Well, in his headline speech, Farage told the crowd Reform's ambition is set to be Britain's biggest political party. Let's take a listen to that now.
If you want to help us and do your bit in whatever way you can in our historic mission, and a mission that I just feel we can't afford to fail at. There's so much at stake. Otherwise, what do we leave to those that come behind us, other than a completely broken and betrayed country? I'm not going to put up with that, and I want you to help me in making sure we prevent that. Are you going to help me in preventing that?
Nigel Farage there speaking moments ago. Well, in other news, the Prime Minister has sacked one of his health ministers over offensive comments he's reported to have made in a WhatsApp group. Andrew Gwynn has also been suspended as a member of the Labour Party and has since apologised for what he calls misjudged comments. It follows reports in the Mail on Sunday claiming he reportedly made anti-Semitic comments and joked about a pensioner constituent, saying he hoped she died before the next election. It's also alleged that he attacked members of his own party, including making racist comments about Labour MP Diane Abbott and sexist comments about Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. Well, Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook told us earlier that he thinks Sir Keir Starmer acted decisively.
Comments made by Andrew Gwynn are completely unacceptable. That this is going to be a government that upholds the highest standards of conduct in public life. We're a government in service of working people, so we've taken decisive action to dismiss Andrew Gwynn as a minister, as is the case. There's a live investigation going on in terms of the Labour Party. Andrew Gwynn's been administratively suspended. He's lost the Labour whip. I don't know what was said in those WhatsApp groups. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment.
The parents of 2 girls killed in the Southport knife attack say they're looking for light in the darkness. Speaking to the Sunday Times, 7-year-old Elsie Dot Stankham and 6-year-old BB King's families remembered their daughters as confident happy and intelligent. They also opened up about their children's funerals and the support of their communities in the months since the horrendous attack. Alice de Silva Aguirre was also one of those who lost her life in that attack. Warnings are continuing today over the potentially deadly cold snap hitting the UK. The Met Office says temperatures could plunge to -7 in parts of the country, with areas set to be hit by snow and ice. The UK Health Security Agency issued yellow cold health alerts for the North East, North West, Yorkshire and the Humber and the South East, which is in place right through to Tuesday. It also means that vulnerable people, including the elderly or people with serious health conditions, could be at risk due to those plunging temperatures. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you for another look at the top stories in around half an hour. Now, though, let's get straight back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, you're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's fast approaching 6 minutes after 5 o'clock. Coming up, Labour ministers are sacked for alleged offensive comments. That is the MP for Gordon and Denton caught out wishing death on a non-Labour voter. And as well as mocking Jewish names and female MPs, it's only been 7 months into the government and 3 ministers have already been forced to leave through scandals. It's just everything seems to be piling on. Well, listen, coming up, I sat down with Captain Tom's daughter, Hannah Ingram-Moore, in an exclusive interview.
It's a name that was picked up because it was too salacious not to, I think. A swim spa, Google it. That's the brand name. It's great. They're great little pools, but it's basically a hot tub at one end.
That's coming up. Send me your thoughts. Post your comments. gbnews.com/your say. So let's cast our minds back to COVID, a time where people were forced into lockdown. They couldn't see their friends or family while some politicians were bending the rules. One man, in the form of Sir Captain Tom Moore, brought hope and love to a nation after walking 100 laps of his garden, raising £38.9 million for the NHS. But 4 years later, his daughter, Hannah Ingram-Moore, has found to have repeatedly benefited from a charity created in her name. We hear from her for the first time since the Charity Commission's report was released.
If he saw what had happened, he would be angry. He'd probably say, Nana, give me the mic. Let me tell them how it is. He'd want to set people straight, but he would be devastated for us. But the truth is this, if he was alive, none of this would have happened.
In a beautiful location during a very difficult time, COVID, one family were about to see their world turned upside down.
This has been devastating on a personal level, emotionally, financially. To have a reputation that you build up over decades demolished so quickly, that's exactly what's happened.
Hannah Ingram-Moore has found herself at the centre of controversy after being accused of profiting from her family name. Last November, the Charity Commission's investigation into the Captain Tom Foundation found repeated instances of misconduct by the family. They said that the public would feel misled about the sales of Captain Tom's autobiography. They also stated Hannah expected a salary in the region of £150,000. She was also paid £18,000 by Virgin Media when interim CEO of the charity, something deemed to be a conflict of interest. And let's not forget the memorial building dubbed the Spa, originally erected in their garden but now demolished. Hannah and her husband were found to have used the charity name for private benefit. Now we hear from Hannah for the first time since the report was released. Your father raised £38.9 million. Where did that money go?
That money went through Just Giving to NHS Charities Together. We never touched a penny, could never have touched a penny. It was entirely designated to go to NHS Charities Together. And that finished on the 30th of April, 2020.
Let's talk about the book deal then, the book. How did that come about?
He received over 225,000 birthday cards. And within this, we were picking up letters and requests from publishers that he should write a book. It was through the PR agency that was supporting my father through all of the craziness of raising 40 million, who said, well, we can introduce you to an agent. She's not one of the sharks. She'll treat you really well, Captain Tom. And so she, the agent, went off at my father's behest to negotiate a book deal for him. She wasn't my agent, she was his agent. And she negotiated on behalf of my father a terrific 3-book deal. He was paid by the publisher to write those books. When he knew how much money he was going to be paid, we sat as a family and he decided what to do with it. It was his money, not my money, not the charity's money, his money for writing books. And he gave it to us. He was paid that money in 2020. He was still alive. If somebody had thought that he should have paid some of that money, they could have asked him, but nobody did. They waited until he died and then came to me and said, I should pay it. That book money was his.
And this is different to the sales of the book, right? So you've got an advance, which they paid him before the books were written, I presume. And then there is the sales of the book, and those are different pots of money.
Yeah.
How did the perception arrive that you were meant to give some of that money to charity?
I don't really know, but let's step back and say that when he was paid that money, and we sat in the same moment that he decided where to put it, we said, well, look, we'll support the launch of the charity with some of that money. And the only press releases that were ever released, bear in mind, they weren't our press releases. There was one that went out in May of 2020 that said, Captain Tom's writing a book. And at the bottom of that press release, it said, and the book will support the launch of the charity. In the last press release, it said, he's written the book, you can come and buy it now. There was no link to the charity at all. And from the minute that those books went on sale, my father nor us have ever received a penny. He got paid to write them, but we've never received it and never will receive, never likely to receive any money from the sales of those books.
So there's no contract that says that the advance given to your father for writing these 3 books, a portion must go to charity. There's nothing anywhere that says that would happen, but the Charity Commission state that there was an impression given that some of the proceeds for the book would go to the charity, because in it, Captain Tom writes, astonishingly at my age, with the offer to write this memoir, I've also been given the chance to raise even more money for the charitable foundation now established in my name. So how do you interpret those words?
Number one, you'd have to open the book and read the first 4 pages to get it. So how would you ever imagine people don't buy a book having read it? You buy it by the look of the cover. And if it was a charity book, it would have had to have been denominated a charity book. When he wrote that, you can twist those words, of course, but what he says is, it's amazing I'm writing a book at my age and I'm going to continue raising money for charity. And what's so awful is that they're suggesting my father didn't know what he was doing. He was alive and well.
When you say they, you mean
the Charity Commission are suggesting he didn't know what he was doing. But he absolutely did know what he was doing. He knew his intentions, and the intentions on page 4 of the book are not an indicator that that's a charity book.
And did you challenge the Charity Commission?
Yes.
How did you challenge
them? We've had to try to defend ourselves at huge cost, personal cost to us, to try and refute the allegations that they challenged us with.
So for the amount that your father gave you, can you say how much he gave you?
Look, the reality is, by the time everybody took their cut, because there were plenty of other people taking money, there was about 800,000 left.
OK. But that money did not come from the sales of the book. That's the advance given to your dad, so the wage. The sales of the book, where do they go? They go to Penguin
Random House. Oh. So that money was paid in 2020, not after. Okay. The book was launched in September 2020. No money came to us. No money came to him after that.
The publishing contract was agreed between Penguin and the family's company called Club Nook and was signed by Hannah. At the time of the inquiry, Penguin said that there was an informal understanding that the Ingram-Moores would use some of the advance to help launch the charity. And the PR agency said the press release was agreed on the understanding funds would go to the charity.
The Charity Commission was saying that somehow we were twisting his desires, his actions, the things he decided to do. And that, I think, worse than damaging my reputation, completely damaging my family's reputation.
So how much would you say you spent trying to defend your name?
If you look at legal costs and associated costs, we're looking in the region of £500,000.
Wow. Hannah was a judge at one of Virgin Media's community awards. The Charity Commission found that there was a conflict of interest as she personally received £18,000 for her appearance whilst acting as interim CEO of the foundation and failed to inform all trustees of the payment. They also found she signed an ambassador agreement with Virgin Media when representing the charity. All right, well, let's talk about Virgin Media then, because that was one of the first projects that you did.
It was to look at the potential winners for prizes for community awards from Virgin Media. So we were part of that judging panel. My father was paid. So the relationship was established very early on in 2020 whilst he was still fundraising for the NHS. After he died, Virgin Media kept contact with me and said they would really like to continue to work with me. The relationship was with me and never with the charity. All of the work that I did on my own time, in holiday hours, in the evenings, at weekends, and Virgin Media paid for all of my transport. Wherever I went to give the awards, it was not a minute on the charity's time, and yet they still got a donation. So it can be twisted. I accept it can be twisted. But you twist it to take away the joy and the love and to make somehow something amazing to sully it.
But the Commission's findings disagree. They claim her work wasn't undertaken in a personal capacity and say there is no evidence to suggest it was done outside of her contracted hours. So Hannah, why do you think people are so up in arms then if what you did was just simply a personal appearance?
I honestly don't know. And this wasn't me just appearing to be me. This was giving out community awards with Virgin Media. It wasn't the Hannah Show. This was me working with them to hand out their awards. It wasn't one appearance. And there were many times that I've been at events and spoken at events, and that money has been donated directly to the charity. No one ever wants to talk about those things.
The Charity Commission claimed that Hannah requested a salary of £150,000 before starting her role as the CEO of the Captain Tom Foundation. And you've been criticised for the £150,000 salary, apparently, that you said you wanted or requested. What is the story behind that?
The chair said to me, "What are you expecting? What kind of money are you expecting to be paid?" I said, "I don't know, this is what I'm earning. And I don't know what CEOs are paid." And he went away and looked at what salaries were paid, what level of salaries were paid. We talked over a long period of time. There was never a moment, A, when I demanded 150, or B, I was offered it. There were plenty of numbers in there that we discussed. In the end, the Charity Commission said that I did not have any fundraising experience. They offered me a fee, a wage, and I took it. That's it.
But the inquiry found that Hannah was very much involved in setting her salary and influenced proposals. I wanted to allow Hannah the chance to speak uninterrupted, give her a chance to have her say. Now, those are her words. They're not the words of a newspaper or hearsay. In the inquiry, it said that people would feel misled by the sales of the book. Do you feel misled? Or perhaps you may feel sympathy for Hannah and the family for what they've had to go through. After the break.
It was a name that was picked up because it was too salacious not to, I think. A swim spa, Google it. That's the brand name. It's great. They're great little pools, but it's basically a hot tub at one end. And to pick that word up and accuse us, that's why we lost the building, because it was turned into a spa. It was a memorial building with all of those things in, one large hot tub, one toilet, one shower, 4 beds.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Ironic article in The Guardian, Nick, caring about facts.
Yeah, this is Meta is ushering in a world without facts, says Nobel Peace Prize winner. And they just seem to give these Nobel Peace Prizes to anyone these days. So it's Maria Ressa.
Not working.
Zuckerberg came out, and it was very bold. He said a few things. We're going to use community notes instead of fact-checkers. Fact-checkers in inverted commas, because it just means people pushing usually a specific viewpoint. Community notes seems to be a great system that X uses, so why not do that? I think that's great. He's going to reduce restrictions on topics like immigration and gender. Good, because I'm against censorship. He's going to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more, which is great. He's also moving content moderation to Texas instead of California, which is banter. So now the cynical version is he just realises we've got a new regime, it's the MAGA era, and I want to be mates with Trump, who said that I should that if I interfere with the 2024 election, he should spend the rest of his life in prison. So he did mention he might be a bit scared of that. He was involved in that in Facebook suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, and I feel that he didn't like being a part of all that from watching interviews.
And also the suppression of arguments about gender and sex, what is biological sex and whatnot. You get banned for saying there are two sexes.
They're on the wrong side of this, and now he's correcting. But the weird thing is the people, of course, the people who don't like this, the lefties, this person, Ressa, is saying that this is a big problem. It's an extremely dangerous time. I've seen all this from the lefties. They just call it disinformation. They're worried about this because to them it's disinformation. To other people it's information.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think we can all agree if people think they're getting their facts just directly from Facebook, then something's horribly wrong. But we know that. The community notes thing, I think, is quite good because that sort of first-hand experience people are putting down, aren't they?
Yeah. People have loads of different views come together, and it's an aggregate, so that's why it works.
GB News, the People's Channel. I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What could be more wonderful than a memorial to commemorate a man who's done so much for this country and indeed the world, bringing light in dark times? The Ingram-Moores were about to find out. I'm standing here on the site that became known as the Spa. Talk to me about the memorial centre that you were planning that then became known as a spa. What was the plan behind that?
If we look at the legacy that's been left by my father, we have 225,000 birthday cards sitting in storage in Park Royal. There were over 100,000 other things sitting in different storage places that we're paying for every month to keep because we don't want to get rid of them. And whilst my father was still alive, we said, well, why don't we create a building to put them in? That would make sense, because at least we've got them here. And what it turned into is, well, we've got so much stuff. There's so many things. We could make it a memorial building. And we could also open it so people could come and see all of the things. And then it's not walking through the house, it's walking through something that's left as a legacy for him.
How would the building have benefited other people?
We were going to set up a place outside for people to have tea and coffee and chat. Remember what my father stood for. We were trying to ensure that we stood for a world against ageism, supporting our ageing population. combat loneliness. That was our ambition. Get people in the community or whoever they came from. We have plenty of parking. It wouldn't have caused any issues. And then when we put the pool there, I had a Pilates teacher lined up who could come and do Pilates lessons for older people, who could help them with arthritis in the pool. All of it gone.
How does that make you feel?
Devastated. Devastated, not just for us as a family, for the loss of all of those things and a place for people to see them, but devastated for what didn't happen.
So at no point was that building actually a spa, as it were?
It was a name that was picked up because it was too salacious not to, I think. A swim spa, Google it. That's the brand name. It's great. They're great little pools, but it's basically a hot tub at one end. And to pick that word up and accuse us, that's why we lost the building, because it was turned into a spa. It was a memorial building with all of those things in. One large hot tub, one toilet, one shower, 4 bags.
And how much did that cost you?
Oh. To knock it down, beyond the cost to us emotionally and physically, and having to bring all of those things down, I don't know, 30, 40,000 just to bring it down.
So in total to build it and knock it down?
I don't know, I'm guessing 150.
£150,000? Wow.
Gone. Because it got made into a spa. In the public consciousness.
Apparently on the planning documents you've used the Captain Tom Foundation.
So we used the planning agent and we should have picked this up, but he put the Captain Tom Foundation. It was the Captain Tom building. So we corrected it.
So you rectified that?
We rectified that.
Right.
No charity money was ever used. That was the other thing people have said. No charity money was ever used. Our money. It wasn't the Captain Tom Foundation building. That word was corrected. It was the Captain Tom building. That's what we got permission for. Yeah. But if someone had sat down and pointed it out, we would have gladly discussed it with them and made sure that it was clearer going forward.
The council rejected the application when it was resubmitted without the charity's name and with the new design. The report found that the Ingram-Moores had failed to consult all the trustees and were using the charity and its name for private benefit. Did you have any experience of running a charity before all of this?
No, not at all. We've raised money for charity through our whole lives, and every year here we had the church fete in the grounds of our house, raising thousands of pounds for the local church. That's the closest I've come, donating into donation boxes. Raising money for things over the years, but no experience whatsoever of how a charity runs, none.
Why do you think there's a perception of you that you're somebody who's trying to almost scam money or in some way? Why do you think there's this perception of you?
I don't know. Why? Because I know what the truth is, so it's really hard for me to understand why you would think that's something bad. We were not founding trustees. And we went in simply in an ambassadorial role with my father, who was still alive, trying to generate. That word was corrected. It was the Captain Tom building. That's what we got permission for. Yeah. But if someone had sat down and pointed it out, we would have gladly discussed it with them and made sure that it was clearer going forward.
The council rejected the application when it was resubmitted without the charity's name and with the new design. The report found that the Ingram-Moores had failed to consult all the trustees and were using the charity and its name for private benefit. Did you have any experience of running a charity before all of this?
No, not at all. We've raised money for charity through our whole lives, and every year here we had the church fete in the grounds of our house, raising thousands of pounds for the local church. That's the closest I've come, donating into donation boxes. Raising money for things over the years, but no experience whatsoever of how a charity runs, none.
Why do you think there's a perception of you that you're somebody who's trying to almost scam money or in some way? Why do you think there's this perception of you?
I don't know. Why? Because I know what the truth is, so it's really hard for me to understand why you would think that's something bad. We were not founding trustees. And we went in simply in an ambassadorial role with my father, who was still alive, trying to generate as much love and generosity towards this charity now set up in his name.
Because it's interesting, in the Commission's report, they talk about the charity, but they don't punish the charity, the trustees at all. So at the end of the whole hearing, you ended up with 10 years to never run a charity again, your husband with 8, but they said they're not going to punish the trustees. Why was that if they were in charge of most of the operating of the charity?
I don't know, because they were responsible for governance. They were aware of everything that was happening. So I don't know why. Why have they not borne any of the responsibility? We went to the trustees and they knew full well the answers to this. They knew the truth. But where were they?
Yeah. Well, you say they knew the truth. How do you know that they knew the truth?
Because very, very early on, we clarified exactly the situation with the books. There was no doubt. There was never a misunderstanding. There was never any preconception that those books belonged to the charity.
The Commission found the trustees didn't always have sufficient oversight of the charity, but said the Ingram-Moores failed to inform them of potential conflicts of interest as they arose, so no further action was taken. Still to come.
I think we could have kept the legacy alive without that friend of ours saying, oh, I think you should set up a charity, go ahead, and he went ahead and did it. I think if we could change anything, it would probably be that, because we could have kept my father's legacy alive without it.
Hello there, good afternoon. This is your latest GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. We are in a quite stagnant weather situation at the moment. High pressure that has set itself up across Scandinavia is essentially acting as a blocking system and leading to a very similar weather pattern day in, day out at the moment. It's an easterly wind that set itself up, and that is providing a lot of moisture and a lot of cloud feeding in from the North Sea, with some outbreaks of rain and showers around as well. Some wintry flakes falling over higher ground routes, particularly the Pennines and the Grampians. If you are further towards the west, there'll be a few clearer spells this evening and overnight, particularly for northwestern Scotland, where it will turn quite chilly, maybe as low as -5, -6 degrees Celsius, but underneath the cloud elsewhere, temperatures will be holding up more around 3 to 4 degrees Celsius. Despite that very chilly start across northwestern Scotland on Monday, though, it is here where we're going to see the most lengthy spells of sunshine right throughout the day. Once again, for the Highlands, the Outer Hebrides, parts of Argyll and Bute, it is going to be quite a lovely, fine day. Elsewhere, cloud is going to be plaguing us, very grey and dull skies. Again, further outbreaks of rain and showers around, falling as snow once again, particularly for the Peak District and the Pennines. Tomorrow we could see a few centimetres building up during the day. We do then also have to factor in the strength of that easterly wind that will be increasing on Monday, so that's going to make it feel particularly cold. Very biting wind that, whilst temperatures on the thermometer will be around 5-6 degrees Celsius at best, it is actually going to feel more like freezing when you add on the strength of that wind, so certainly is a day to be wrapping up warm when you are outside. Generally, things stay very similar into the evening period, and actually that stagnant weather situation is going to continue for a good portion of this forthcoming week. So expect particularly eastern areas to be cloudier overall. Generally in the west, you've got a greater chance of seeing a touch more sunshine around, but temperatures still below average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're
proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Following media interest, the Ingram-Moores say that their reputation has been left in tatters. I wanted to find out where the family will go from here and whether they think they can change public perception for the better. So as we sit in Captain Tom's room, how has this whole experience left you in terms of financially and also mentally?
Well, thank you for asking the question, because not many people even begin to think that there might be an impact on us. But here we sit surrounded by the extraordinary things that were my father's. This is where he lived 14 really gloriously happy years. So how can I feel sorrow? But the reality is that this has been devastating on a personal level, emotionally, financially. To have a reputation that you build up over decades. And they say, don't they, you have a reputation that's built up and it can be demolished so quickly. That's exactly what's happened. I have my own business, but no one will touch my business now. Our lives have been devastated.
Financially, where has this left you?
Oh, depleted. Completely and utterly depleted.
In terms of this house itself, are you able to stay here? Are there any plans that you may have to move?
Yeah, well, we will have to. In the end, we will have to, but as much because there used to be 7 people in this house, and now everyone's left. It's just my husband and me. It's time for us to move on.
Do you regret any of this? I mean, if you could do it all again, would you?
So I want to be positive because I'm a naturally positive person. I don't want to look at life down a really dark lens, but it's hard to see the future in anything other than hard steps forward. People from 162 countries donated to that 38.9 million. They were not benefiting from the NHS. They were donating for what? They were donating for my father giving them hope, for my father giving them joy, for something that he represented. It's really hard to say, undo it. How could we? How could we undo that? Because he positively touched so many people's lives. Even now, with the devastation that's happened afterwards, I'd find it really difficult to say we wouldn't do it again. But hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? I think we could have kept the legacy alive without that friend of ours saying, oh, I think you should set up a charity, go ahead. And he went ahead and did it. I think if we could change anything, it would probably be that, because we could have kept my father's legacy alive without it.
Now, you said that if your father would see you now, he would be grabbing the mic.
He would.
And he'd say, Nana, let me speak.
Yes.
What would he say?
He'd be outraged. And I think he'd be cross. He had very strong opinions, my father, and he had a very strong opinion of right and wrong. And he would think how we've been treated was despicable. And he believed that we're responsible for ourselves, that we shouldn't be reliant on other people, or the state for that matter. He believed we're here, we should step forward in our own skin, be responsible for ourselves, and be good and kind to other people too. I can only be given the chance to tell what we know to be true and allow people to make up their own minds.
Would you ever work in the charity sector again?
No, I wouldn't leave charity because I think we can still have a positive impact. Because I have been disqualified from any paid role, but they can't stop me from volunteering.
Do you feel that was fair?
I was a trustee for 4 weeks, never went to a meeting. There were trustees there for 3 years. 3 years. They were responsible for governance.
Hannah, what would you say to the Charity Commission if they were right here, right now, listening? What would your message to them be?
You wiped out a fundraising family. look at the opportunity we had to be a force for good, for force for positive impact on society. They wiped us out. Why? In that last headline, they said, Captain Tom's family. So they have wound my children into their accusations. It's wicked what they've done. But why? Why, after raising nearly £40 million, by trying to go forward and raise so much more for really just causes, wipe us out?
If you could sum up this experience in a sentence, what would it be?
I have to really pinch myself, because it's very much like this is happening to someone else, because we're still a family doing the family things that we were always doing. It's just now when I step out on my front door, I look to see if there's cameras at the end of the garden. We're nobodies. We're just ordinary people getting on with our ordinary lives.
And in telling your story, what are you hoping to achieve?
To allow people, I think, to see the story that's been told one way, to allow them to look at it perhaps through a different lens.
Anna, thank you very much for taking time to talk to me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
So, after raising all that money, as I walk in the footsteps of Captain Tom, I get the impression that I'm talking to a family who really didn't understand the world they'd stepped into, the world of charity. Behind the headlines are a family who were trying to make a difference, trying to do something good. Yes, they made mistakes, but did they really deserve to lose everything? In response to this programme, the Charity Commission said, charity law is very clear. Charity trustees cannot misuse their position to gain personally. Our rigorous investigation found repeated instances where Hannah and Colin Ingram-Moore's actions blurred the boundaries between their private interests and those of the charity. We stand by the findings of our inquiry, which are based on evidence. The Commission did not put the charity or Hannah Ingram-Moore into the limelight. The late Captain Sir Tom Moore's fundraising work attracted high levels of public and media commentary independently of our inquiry, as did matters of public concern about the charity. As a fair, balanced and independent regulator, it is vital that we uphold and protect people's trust in charity, including by taking robust regulatory action where appropriate, as we have done in this inquiry. In response to this programme, a spokesperson for the 1189808 Foundation, formerly the Captain Tom Foundation, said, the Charity Commission's unequivocal findings regarding the Ingram-Moore's misconduct speak for themselves. Hannah Ingram-Moore's latest attempt to rehabilitate her reputation by revising history is indicative of her contempt for the regulatory environment under which charities operate and the responsibilities that she had to the foundation, whether as a founder, trustee, its CEO or otherwise. Well, so there you have it. What do you think? What are your thoughts? gbnews.com/your say. You know, I'd love to hear what you think about that and whether you feel that you've changed your opinion. Now, the comment at the end of the programme was provided by the charity, which now operates under a different name, and its administration and is administered by a former trustee of the Captain Tom Foundation. 2 other former trustees did not respond to our request for comment. Well, OK, let's speak to Stephen Barrett. He's a barrister. Stephen Barrett, what were your thoughts?
Yes, well, it all seems to me to be terribly sad. I mean, we've lost the focus on the fact that Sir Tom Moore raised 39, nearly £40 million for the NHS, and the NHS got that. And instead, we've done a very modern thing in that we've tried to find some scandal somewhere that we can get outraged about. And Hannah Ingram-Moore is, she is who she is, and you may like her or not like her, but why are we pursuing scandal all the time? Why do we want to be horrified? Why do we want to be titillated? I mean, this charity, it carries on under, you said a new name. I thought that was a very polite way to put it. No, I think it carries under a completely ridiculous name. It's a series of numbers. Well, that's not going to help a charity. That's complete gibberish. So it's not really going to achieve anything. It's not going to do any good. The potential for
this. Hannah's no longer part of that.
Yes,
he's not part of that anymore.
Exactly, and they will privately own all of his things. I mean, actually, as I was watching that, I was quite interested in the idea of a museum, Tim. I don't think it's a bad idea.
No.
And if people have sent 220,000 birthday cards, and if there's other items that can be displayed, why not? Because she's right in that he gave us hope in an awful time. And we must never forget just how awful COVID was. I mean, I think we all went collectively mad, and I never really get very angry at anybody because I think I went mad too. And I think we all just got so scared that we weren't acting rationally. And Captain Tom and Her Late Majesty the Queen were one of the few people who came and gave us hope at that terrifying time. And I would much rather remember that legacy than care about all of this. I think the Charity Commission is wrong. I thought it was rather rude in its assessment that we hadn't caused this fuss. Captain Tom was already famous, is basically their defence. But quite clearly they've caused the stink because they're the ones implying that things have gone wrong. I mean, if there were major failings at this charity, I would expect all the trustees to be disciplined, and none of them were. So it does just look like a bit of a vendetta. It looks like a bit of a witch hunt. And I don't know as a society why we're living this way. It won't make any of us happy. Sure, you can burn a witch tomorrow, find another one next week and burn that witch. We will not be happy. The only way that we're going to be happy is if we have clear rules known in advance, and all this is just woolly nonsense.
Because they said that she requested £150,000 or suggested it. Well, so what? I don't understand why that should form part of an inquiry. It's, she didn't get that. Maybe it was the same salary that she had before. That was the implication there. You would ask for the same money. I just don't get why that would be something that should be focused in an inquiry as a negative thing, unless you're trying to show someone's being greedy.
Yes, well, exactly. And always at these times, I just say, give me the clear rule. I mean, I'm pretty simple. I'm rules-based. So if it's immoral for a charity executive to be paid £150,000, then I want all of them who are paid £150,000, and I think there's quite a few, to not be paid £150,000. If that's the rule, give me a clear rule and apply it consistently, and we'll have a better society. At the moment, we're just running around burning witches and stoking mobs.
Also, the other thing, the book. Now, I thought with a charity book, there has to be rules, so it has to say exactly how much is going to the charity. There would be a contract in place. It can't be supposition. We thought that you might, so therefore we all got the impression. That doesn't fly with me, and it wouldn't fly for them, because they're very litigious.
I don't think it would fly with a judge.
No.
And that's the difference between being tried by this sort of mob court that is a regulator, and it doesn't really matter which regulator it is. I'm not particularly picking on the Charity Commission. I think they're all awful. But whenever you're charged and tried before one of these regulatory bodies, they don't, to my mind, apply the same rigorous standards that a court would try. These are joke or fake courts. And it is quite right, that was a telling part of the evidence. I think the Charity Commission and the charity itself, Penguin Random House said, oh, well, we thought. It's like, well, write it down then. You're grown-ups. Get a bloody contract.
Oh,
sorry.
Apologies for the language. Right, let's bring in justice and crime policing commentator Danny Shaw. Danny Shaw, welcome to the programme. Well, we want to get your response on some of this as well. So, Danny Shaw, what are your thoughts?
I'm baffled as to why she's done the interview, quite frankly. If you're in a hole, stop digging. The Charity Commission report, I've looked at it, I've read it. It's detailed, it's thorough, it goes into all the emails and letters, everything else, all the details in quite, in a very thorough way. And it concludes that there was serious and repeated instances of misconduct and mismanagement by Mr. and Mrs. Ingram-Moore. And then it sets out all the evidence.
But what about the book? So what about the fact that if in anything, there would be a contract. So there's specific rules as to how much you're going to get something from a book in charity. There are specific rules. You can't just say, oh, well, we thought you might be giving us an amount. What about that? I mean, surely that should be
it looks into that in some detail, and basically concludes that there was, a promise that the proceeds would support the charity, and it concludes that it turned out to be a purely commercial endeavour that benefited the Ingram-Moore's company.
Well, no.
I mean, we can go into it.
I am going into it. That's the point.
The Charity Commission has investigated it, and that's what they found. And also, the Ingram-Moores appealed against the decision.
Yes.
And an independent reviewer looked at it and upheld the Charity Commission decision.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry,
at great cost as well. I'm just saying at great cost.
Yeah.
So, if you believe in your decision, you put your money where your mouth is, you obviously think that you have, you're saying that they're after money and all this. And I'm saying, well, they put their money where their mouth is and said, hold on a minute, we're not happy with this. We're going to finance a case to show that we did not do this. They did not win the case, but they put their money where their mouth is. They must have believed it, is what I'm saying.
Well, look, I'm very sorry for Mrs. Ingram-Moore because, and I think the Charity Commission acknowledges this, it must have been a very, very stressful time for them. COVID, as you say, and then this, and then the death of Captain Tom must have hit them very hard, and they were probably overwhelmed by the support and everything else that was coming along. And it's clear that perhaps they were out of their depth in terms of what they were trying to do. So, there are lots of mitigating factors here. And I want to make it clear that this isn't about demolishing her reputation or saying she hasn't got a contribution to make or trashing her as some of the press have done. It's not about that. But it's just about looking at what happened with that charity and with the way it was run. And the Charity Commission has found a series of failings over a period of time. They have said that Mrs. Ingram-Moore was not strictly accurate around the salary
she just asked for a salary that she didn't get.
Disingenuous is what they found. And there are other findings as well. And I'm sorry about that, but that's the situation.
All right.
And of course, she may still have a contribution to make.
I'm sure.
I hope she does. But I don't understand really why she's done this interview at this time.
Well, she did say at the end that it was to try and give people a different lens to see it from her point of view. So hopefully, at least you've seen that. Danny Shaw, thank you very much for joining me. Really good to talk to you as well. And Stephen Barrett, really good to talk to you as well. All right, let's stay with us because we've got still loads more to come here on GB News. But if you're in search of some winter sun, here are the forecasts of some of the top European holiday destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
You may well be thinking of escaping the cloudy skies of the UK and heading to the Mediterranean, though it is rather mixed out there at the moment. There are some heavy showers and thunderstorms across parts of Malta and Sicily, though recent snowfall across the Alps should hopefully help with some skiing conditions. Perhaps the most settled conditions across parts of southern Iberia, Portugal and Spain, though there is some showery rain pushing into parts of Madeira as well. Generally, it is going to be the west that holds on to the most settled conditions during this week as well.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Manage your long flowing locks.
Joining me now, journalist Danny Kelly and also political commentator Andy Williams, and of course Stephen Barrett is still with me. Andy Williams.
I'm afraid that I found and find Hannah Ingram-Moore a deeply unsympathetic character. I think there are
What about the content of the actual...
I think it's very good. I think it's very good interview. I think there are a number of things she doesn't address. She says, for example, well, it wasn't a spa. OK, it wasn't a spa. I accept it's a hot tub. But why do you need a hot tub in a memorial building?
You know she paid for all of that, but they paid for all of that. So this is not from the charity fund.
But the building was supposed to be a memorial building,
she
and she decided to put a hot tub in it.
She explained that she was thinking that she was going to have old people and people coming in, and they were going to have a little bit of a trying to wellness type thing with people.
Yeah, I'm sceptical about that. The other thing that I don't understand is that in the prologue of the book, he says, with the offer to write this memoir, I have been given the chance to raise more money for the foundation. I think that is a clear implication that this is an effort to raise money, and that money was not given to charity.
Well, here's the problem. I don't. I don't see that's the problem.
Well,
and
the
it's
Charity Commission
ambiguous. Yeah, but it's ambiguous. And if you're doing anything when it comes to money, it's litigious. And the Charity Commission have strict legal procedure for books that are given to charity. Danny Kelly.
I thought it was a terrific documentary, and I tell you, there was a lot of humanity on display from yourself, Nana, and from Hannah. And it reminded me of a Tom Bradley moment with Meghan Markle, when Meghan Markle was asked, "How are you actually feeling?" And she said, you know, no one's asked me that. And we heard that with Hannah Ingram-Moore as well.
Yeah.
I thought it was a terrific documentary. I'll leave the legalese and defer to my legal friends, but I thought it was excellent.
Oh, thank you. Right. And finally to you, Stephen Barrett, you've got about 20 seconds if you could squeeze it in.
I don't think that we have to decide that Hannah Ingram-Moore is a saint. I don't think we have to decide that she's a good person. I think we just have to maybe reorganise our society so that we all know what the rules are and then we can all follow the rules. It does feel like, to me, she's being hung out to dry over unclear rules.
All right. Stephen Barrett, thank you very much. My brilliant panel, Danny Kelly and Andy Williams. And as ever, to you, our GB News poll, I asked you a question on whether you think that leaks messages, private messages, should be fair cop for politicians. Listen, according to a Twitter poll, 93% of you say yes, 7% of you say no. Well, I've got to say thank you to you for your company. I hope you've enjoyed this show. Stay with me. Loads more still to come on GB News. Have a wonderful week.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. This is your latest GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. We are in a quite stagnant weather situation at the moment. High pressure that has set itself up across Scandinavia is essentially acting as a blocking system and leading to a very similar weather pattern day in, day out at the moment. It's an easterly wind that set itself up, and that is providing a lot of moisture and a lot of cloud feeding in from the North Sea, with some outbreaks of rain and showers around as well. Some wintry flakes falling over higher ground routes, particularly the Pennines and the Grampians. If you are further towards the west, there'll be a few clearer spells this evening and overnight, particularly for northwestern Scotland, where it will turn quite chilly, maybe as low as -5, -6 degrees Celsius, but underneath the cloud elsewhere, temperatures will be holding up more around 3 to 4 degrees Celsius. Despite that very chilly start across northwestern Scotland on Monday, though, it is here where we're going to see the most lengthy spells of sunshine right throughout the day. Once again, for the Highlands, the Outer Hebrides, parts of Argyll and Bute, it is going to be quite a lovely, fine day. Elsewhere, cloud is going to be plaguing us, very grey and dull skies. Again, further outbreaks of rain and showers around, falling as snow once again, particularly for the Peak District and the Pennines. Tomorrow we could see a few centimetres building up during the day. We do then also have to factor in the strength of that easterly wind that will be increasing on Monday, so that's going to make it feel particularly cold. Very biting wind that, whilst temperatures on the thermometer will be around 5-6 degrees Celsius at best, it is actually going to feel more like freezing when you add on the strength of that wind, so certainly is a day to be wrapping up warm when you are outside. Generally, things stay very similar into the evening period, and actually that stagnant weather situation is going to continue for a good portion of this forthcoming week. So expect particularly eastern areas to be cloudier overall. Generally in the west, you've got a greater chance of seeing a touch more sunshine around, but temperatures still below average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British Giveaway, with 2 fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is, 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner.